Well, there's like 21 of you guys here. You guys just like got here early. Oh, Jared's not doing a live feed tonight. That's what it is. So, guys, as you know, we have all the way from Australia via the future because it's tomorrow there. It's tomorrow at 2 p.m. Well, 2:30 p.m. We've got Pete from Cedric and Ada. So this is something I've been looking forward to for a while because I love Pete's channel. It's one of those things that, like, if there was a channel that I was gonna fanboy over and be like really excited and nervous about him being on, it's gonna be Pete. I mean, Neves is here, but like screw him. I talk to him all the time. So at any rate, before we start, I just want to remind everyone, this isn't a place for political commentary. If you want that, go watch like The Quartering or Tim Pool. And this is not a place for drama. If you want that, go watch a soap opera. So we're just going to have fun, talk with Pete. I got some questions and stuff. And so here he is all the way from Australia. Pete.
Hey, Mike, everyone.
So
How are you?
In honor of you being here, I actually set something up here. So let me get it going. So there we go for this evening's background.
Oh, so you're not in an office building after all. You're actually in the Sydney Harbour.
I'm in Sydney Harbour.
In Pride Week, by the looks of it. Very nice.
It's
very
Pride
fancy.
Week. Yeah, but it's the only good background of Sydney I could find that wasn't like too bright.
Well,
Jared,
if you know anything about Sydney, that's definitely when Sydney's at its best during weeks like that. They pull out all the fancy stuff. That's for sure.
I've never been to Sydney. I told you during the thing. I've been to Darwin a bunch of times. I love. Yeah, we had the story. We talked about that. But I've also been to Fremantle, Perth area, and I had a blast every time I went. But I think you're right. The Northern Territories is definitely an interesting place.
It's a wild place. That being said, the western part at the moment is having a weird moment where they're basically there's always been this joke that the West, a bit like Texas, I think, that they want to break off and make their own country. So right now, the Western Australia, they've still got a hard border with the rest of Australia because of the pandemic. And so they're in this really weird moment where they're sort of being exceptionally isolationist. It's really quite funny to watch. It's been good.
Holy crap. This is going to be a good feed, Pete. I can tell already. We've I have to do a lot.
Certainly getting some folks through. Yeah.
What you got there for a beverage on your Saturday afternoon?
This is a pink gin, like a wild berry gin with soda water.
I'm having the cheapest beer I could get delivered to my house because I forgot to go buy any before Friday night. So
you need beer delivered to your house.
Yeah, I love it. It's so great. It really doesn't cost. There's some delivery services like, oh yeah, we deliver all kinds of stuff and we deliver beer and stuff like that. Winston, this is one of my paying members. Huge fan of your content. Love the rope edge retention testing. This is also everybody. This is the guy that sent me this knife as a gift that I am absolutely in love with.
Is that what is that?
This is that. Okay, so Bastinelli did a collaboration with Acheron Knives. So Bastinelli in Florida with Acheron in France, made by Viper in Italy. Because that's just how the knife
global world we live in. Now I've got a whole knife testing drawer here now in my new little knife lab. So it's all got my stuff in it there.
Nice.
Plenty more of that to come.
I have all my sharpening stuff on a shelf. I think you might have seen it when I was like doing this stuff. I have all my sharpening stuff out here in the garage.
So my shelf going on. So I got my Tormek. I got my work sharp, the powered one that ruined your knives apparently. I got the what's that? The new work sharp one that's nice and manual, and then I've got the KME and the what's the Russian one? I've got that now as well. That's in my room.
The TS Pro.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so I'm still playing around with that one too.
I wanted to make sure
I do it by hand because I'm too unco.
I can only it takes me. I had a couple different fixtured systems, and it takes me so much longer. I'm so much better freehand. I can do a knife so much faster freehand than I can because
once you've got it down, and once you got good stones as well.
So if you remember when I did the 5 knives that make you smile, the one that was the one that you started. Yeah. This is that knife that was missing from the collection. I finally found it, and I have not been. I mean, it is such a cheap little, crappy little knife. But the fact was, it was the first knife, and my father engraved my initials in it, which are now I turned those initials and his handwriting into my design logo. So all
Oh,
my
cool.
knives that I designed, it was a way for me to kind of like make my father live on through it. So that me finding that made me so happy, and it made a couple other people happy because I found knives of theirs that were in that same case.
Oh no, they get lost. Don't they? They fall everywhere.
Oh yeah. So I have some stuff written down. So I kind of wanted you to tell us about yourself and how you got into knives. And I imagine it's going to be kind of the same story that we all have. Like, my father gave me a knife and it just kind of started an addiction that he didn't see coming.
See, with me, I like this is so horribly embarrassing for so many reasons. But the first thing that comes into my head is and I don't even have it here anymore. Is Bear Grylls? Bear Grylls. Yeah, because he
Oh,
was
the Gerber, the orange-handled Bear Grylls Gerber.
yes, those were my first knives. The knives you buy when you don't know anything about knives, and they had a really nice website back in like 2009. The website was nice, and I went there, and it was something about that. And I guess when you really look at it, it was just an LMF with some horrific coloring to it, and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same
it's
kind of
exactly what
concept
it was.
made of Chinese steel and all that sort of thing. But you don't know that, so something about the vision of that really hit home with me. So my first knife was that Bear Grylls fixed blade. I mean, I'd had some knives before. I'd had Victorinoxes and things, but I was at that very receptive stage when you're like 23, 24. I've had my first kid, I think, and I'm a bit fat. I'm a bit shit. I'm probably wanting to recapture that man thing, that you want to feel like a red-blooded dude again because you're kind of a potato just sitting around the home with your kids. And I look back on those old, I was watching a YouTube video from early in my channel when I first started showing my face, and my face is like this wide, and I was just in that stage where I was like, and I think knives were that thing that kind of made me feel a bit more lively again and a bit more like a dude again. And so it was, as well as it being, I still think it's kind of a coolish looking knife, but as well as it being that, it kind of also had that outdoorsy thing where it made you feel like you could go on an adventure with it. And I tried that a couple of times. So that was really the first fixed blade. And then from there, I started watching knife YouTube, and of course, I watched the same thing that everyone watches, which is Nut and Fancy, which is Cutlery Lover, and all those old
Yeah.
channels. And they of course start steering you towards, for lack of a better word, proper brands. Like, not that Gerber's not a proper brand, but Gerber Bear Grylls is certainly not a proper brand of knife. Like, they don't make much good, I suppose.
I have to admit, I've seen some of,
Mm.
and for what they weren't horrible. Like they
They
weren't a
weren't. They were,
horrible
yeah.
knife. Like I've
They
seen
weren't
much
gas
worse
station
knives.
level, like, yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't like, we don't have gas stations here that sell knives, but we've got like cheap kind of arcade shops that sell the same kind of knives that I see you guys all describe as gas station knives. So
Like we
that we
call
don't
them
have,
in the shopping malls, they were the mall ninja shops. Like,
yeah. Like, the worst knife I've got at the moment, I reckon, is
that
where
is
are
a
we?
nice set of that is a nice
Yeah, it's
trolley you
cool,
got
huh?
there. I
I
like that.
pulled
That
out all the
is
stops. It's, to be honest, Mike, this is the first shed I've had that's like getting towards being proper. Like, I've put all the cement down and stuff, and it's just nice. Like, I've always just had a shitty, like, either a too small kind of like a garden shed, or I've had like this before, which was just a dirt floor and some carpet. But yeah, so I'm kind of
yeah.
trying to make the most of it. But
I
this
was
is like
gonna
a
comment on that. Like I wanted to know how many of the bearings fell out of the drawer races when when you undid it, because the last
when
time
it
I
turned
did
it
one of those, there was
sideways.
like half of
Yeah,
the
I know.
bearings fell out. Like, God damn
You can see it happening. So this is like a gas station knife. This is what this is
That's
just,
I had one
you
of
know,
those with the two
yeah,
blades.
just pure shit. Like, and this probably not even, wouldn't even have carbon in the blade still, probably. So this is a true gas station knife. So the Bear Grylls knives have never been this bad,
Yeah.
but they certainly are kind of like a very low entry level. So I started with the Gerber Bear Grylls knives, and then I think I moved up through to, like, I eventually got a Spyderco, and that was when I sort of had a first, I guess, a proper knife. Because before that, I moved sideways into Leatherman, which I've always
Those
made
they,
good multi
actually
tools for sure.
they've made really good multi
Mm,
tools, and their knives were also good. Let
yeah.
me ring the bell for this guy here.
Oh yeah.
I figure I grew up on a farm with cattle. I may as well have a cowbell. The cat was like, I've had enough of this. Fuck off. I'm leaving.
It's like Bricky's writing my comments now as well. Crikey. I've got a new Bricky 3.0 sitting there, busting
Yeah.
out in the old vids. So yeah. No, so my knife journey, pretty much, it was about a year dabbling in the Bear Grylls-y sort of and I didn't have much money back then. As I said, I was 22, the bottom of your career trajectory. You got a kid, I think we had our first mortgage. So it was whatever was cheap and okay. So I think my first okay brand folding knife was a Leatherman Crater C33. Do you remember that knife?
Mm,
There was a little black-handled Leathermans.
yep.
I'm not even sure if I've got it anymore. The little black-handled Leathermans. Yeah, here it is. Still got it. So this was
Yeah.
probably my first knife that I was kind of almost proud to have. Little Crater, and I
Hang
mean
on a
you can
second. I'll
see how
give you
much it like.
me.
There you go. The blade is like sharpened to nothingness pretty much. It's like so fat behind the edge because I actually use this a
Yeah.
lot, and of course I practice sharpening on it a lot, so it's pretty fucked now. But kind of there, the first sort of knife, I was like, oh, this is a good knife, like good brand. I think move from
The
that to
Leatherman knives,
Spyderco's, you know.
the
They're fine.
the
They're
Leatherman
absolutely
knives
fine.
were actually really good. The knives that were in the actual tools were really good too. I
That's
was
true as
always
well.
impressed with how good the knives that were in the Leatherman tools were themselves.
Yeah,
I was
well,
like,
especially if you get
that's a
yourself
decent little knife.
and if you get yourself a Leatherman skeletal or something, or you get yourself an AL charge with like the 154 set, and the blades are all fine. Even the big
Yeah.
420 HC blades, they're all fine too. So, yeah, I think I moved from Leatherman to it was. I remember it was a really big deal for me to spend 150 Australian dollars on a knife, which is about what a Spyderco Endura was and a Delica was, and
I love
that
the
was a huge thing
Enduras.
for me for a while. Yeah, so it was a
The
huge thing for
Enduras are
me. So
great.
eventually, I sprung. Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah.
I've got a I've got an Endella here, so kind of like a new version. It's like my recurring gag with this on the channel is it's the most boring knife. So whenever I'm going to film videos about this, it's always just going to be I'm going to divert to talking about potatoes or onions or something like that. So, but
Yeah.
they're good knives. So I think I dabbled about that price level for a while, and then I think I did. I eventually got myself a Sebenza, and that was to the point where I figured that if I pay too much, I won't use it either. So then I've sort of walked it back to about this kind of Benchmade level of price, which I sit in fairly happily. Like I can happily buy a Benchmade every couple of months and not feel too guilty about it. And so that's kind of where I sit now, because I always want to use my knives when I have them. I feel miserable if I'm too scared to use them. So that's kind of how I've landed.
I've kind of gotten to where, like, I started, when I was in the military, I had knives that were issued to me and stuff like that. And I had knives that I bought, and they weren't horrible knives. But when I got out, that's when I really kind of indulged in my knife addiction. And I jumped, like, I went from like $60 to $150 knives to like couple $1,000 knives, custom knives. And then I got into and I've told this story before. I got a couple of really good, like $300 to $400 production knives. I had a Microtech that I got, and I had a Riat Horizon D. And I was like, why am I? Because they were actually better than some of those custom knives I had. The action was better. The steel held the edge better. The grind, everything about them was a little bit better. And I've kind of went even further now. Well, I have some knives that, even though like my Norseman is my day-to-day carry, I carry this every day. There's not a day since I got it that it hasn't been in my pocket. But there's also some of these budget knives that I'm going to say are as good as some of the $500-$600 knives that I have in my case. Like, they're great. And it's a really good time to be in that knife hobby right now.
Well, there was that point about sort of 8 years ago now, where the production quality seemed to just get twice as good overnight. And then everything that was over $60 was just, you wouldn't get wonky. But like for a while, if you bought something under $50, the blade would probably be wonky, or it seemed like very quickly they just ironed all that stuff out. Whether it was the Chinese started doing it, everyone said, oh shit, we better tighten up all our machines. Whatever happened, something within about 6 months, everyone went from having, I don't know, everything under $50 being likely kind of shitty to everything at $50 being about as good as the $150 knives were a year before. It went really quickly.
It was a really rapid change. Hang on a second. I got so Daniel was used says boring can be a good thing. The whole point of the wee banter. That was the whole point of the wee banter after all. So
yeah, for sure. Just a practical, reliable knife that is, well, that's exactly this. And well, really, my favorite knife at the moment, and this was my EDC today, is the Alma Eagle.
Oh,
this is the HD
okay.
version.
That's one of the questions that's on my list.
What a boring looking knife. Like, honestly,
I think,
look at that.
I don't know if you saw the comment. I actually had one of those and got rid of it and kind of regret it. It is boring.
Yeah,
and it was so good.
They're boring in that way that, it looks like a steak knife, but then it's kind of not boring because actually not many folding pocket knives look like steak knives anymore. So its uniqueness is almost its boringness, and it's like an Ouroboros eating its own head. If you think about it, it's just going and going. So I love that. And that's a boring ass looking knife, but It's something. I'd rather have this than have something with like, well, remember those quartermaster knives with like 3 thumb studs, take that any day of the week over those,
I got
Mm.
I got into the big quartermaster knives thing. I have a friend that just tore into quartermaster knives about the fact like they were lying about you. He has a quartermaster frame lock that was supposed to be full titanium, and he was like, he showed me a video. He's like,
Magnetic.
I didn't know that titanium was magnetic, and I was like, I don't think it
Yeah.
is, bud. He goes, yeah, I know, and we did a whole video about that and stuff like that. There's my buddy Nico. He says he's still stuck in Vegas airport because of flight delay.
Oh,
So you've already answered the first 2 questions that I had on my list, which was your first knife, like
efficient.
what really got into. Yeah, you're efficient. I
Mm.
dig it. Um, what I have to ask because I haven't been in Australia for a long time. I know what it's like in Europe because I have a friend that's in the British Special Forces, and he tells me how hard it is, like outside of work, to have knives. What are the restrictions like in Australia for knives?
So it goes state by state, as I think you guys are pretty state driven as well with your
Yeah.
legislation. A lot of
Well,
things I
even
read.
cities.
So
Here. It's even city to city.
even so here it's state. So you've got about 8 different legal codes. In Queensland, which is the northernmost state, you can carry it actually specifies Swiss Army knife or penknife. So you can carry that all the time. So that's cool. But most other states, it's about your purpose for carrying the knives. And unfortunately, the standard, in case I come across something that I could use a utility knife for, that's not one of those reasons. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's incredibly grey, and it usually falls down to just hoping that you don't get stopped and searched, which is not ideal, and that
And
sucks. But
a lot of it also depends on the officer that might be pulling you over.
that's exactly right. And frankly, I think we've got a different type of policing here, which is less likely to cause individuals to be searched. I'm not sure if that's maybe a different thing, but it really doesn't happen too often. The amount of guys that would carry, like my grandpa carried a pocket knife on him for his whole life, never run afoul of it. And in fact, he even went to the airport once and he had to dump it out for the airport. And so he lost his knife because that whole TS, that we've got the same sort of thing
Yeah,
where
yeah.
we can mail it back to you, sir, for $50. And he was an old man. And he just said, I can't be bothered with it. Just get rid of it. And he just went and bought himself another one. And then he wasn't even in any trouble for that. So I think it's very situational. If you don't draw attention to yourself and basically say, look, me, please search me. Because I think our police have relatively, there's good controls that you need to sort of meet a few qualifiers to be able to get searched as well. I understand in some states in America, there's almost like there isn't much in regard to what can cause an officer to search you. So
If
there's
you're
a few things like
if
that.
you're in New York, they'll just do it because they think they see a
Yeah.
pocket clip.
So you read things like that. So whereas here it's like we're a bit of a less policed nation, perhaps. I don't know. Like
Well,
it doesn't seem to cause lots of guys problems. Most people still
okay.
don't carry outside of their homes. But
Australia is still just like in all honesty, I've been there so many times. Australia is like the epitome of an untamed frontier. Like once you get like, I don't care what city you're in, you get outside of that city very far and you're in the middle of fucking nowhere.
it really is. Like as I've said to you before the show, like it's 2.5 hours between me and my nearest what you'd call city.
Yeah.
And it really is like I mean, if you ring 000, which is our helpline, you probably still get police within half an hour. But it's not like, you are a bit kind of more on your own out in the wilds, especially. Oh, and once you leave like a proper built-up area at all, you could literally read people all the time. They drive too far into the desert, their petrol runs out of their car, and then they just die from sitting in their car from exposure and stuff. So
Yeah.
it is very much untamed, and it is still pretty like it can be a pretty wild place still, I guess. But it's just and it's sort of people find their natural place that matches them best, I guess. If you're happy being like out in more of a high risk environment where you could roll your tractor on your leg and someone take 3 hours for them to come and help you, then that's cool. But also if you want to live in the city and have the more restrictive city lifestyle, then that's cool too, I guess. Yeah.
So I went to Darwin. So I went to Fremantle and Perth a few times, but I went to Darwin probably 8-10 times because we would do, like I said, I was on amphibious ships and we would do cross training with the Australian Marines. And that's a lot of the military infrastructure for that is up there in the Northern Territories, stuff like that. I loved Darwin because you had like a small town kind of environment. You had like the stuff you would want in a city. There was casinos and stuff like that, but literally, I met a girl one night when I was drunk. She got me because she's like, "Oh, you can come back to my place." And I woke up and I went. I remember before because I was like blackout drunk, and she was like, I remember her saying, "Don't smoke in the house." So I went outside to smoke a cigarette because I still smoked cigarettes at the time. And I realized that like I hear a hum of a generator. There weren't even the power lines to her place. Like I was like, I looked and I could see nothing in any direction. And I was like, oh, great. She brought me out here and she's going to murder me and bury my body next to the house. But we hung out there for the day. And then she had to call someone to pick us up and drive us back into town. We were like 45 minutes, maybe an hour outside of Darwin. And there is nothing out there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I've got like, I'm not sure if this is common or not, but I don't have, like, I've got my own septic tank and things like that. We don't have plumbed in sewer. Like my water is just from like pumped from the river. Like it's not like municipal water. So mainly you run your house off of rainwater, things like that. Solar is your friend for sure. So you sort of, even living in my existence here is still sort of rural, but civilized. You're still very much, you're still very much having to take care of yourself just a little bit more than you would have to in a suburb or in a city, for example. And there's a lot of Australia that's very much like that.
Daniel says, what's Mike's best Aussie accent? I don't have a best Aussie accent. It's horrible. It's not good at all. And he said, what's your best American accent? The only thing I can think of is Paul Hogan back before he was Crocodile Dundee and he was part of the tourism stuff, like put another shrimp on the Barbie. That's the only thing I could associate with that I ever remember trying to do.
He just set back Australian culture about 30 years every time he opens his mouth. Old Paul Hogan.
I love Paul Hogan. He's hilarious.
Oh, he's a national treasure, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
so what's my best American accent?
Yeah,
my best American accent. Who's the American voice I hear the most is probably oh, hey everybody, Nick here, and today I'm going to talk to you about
I don't know if that's even an American accent. I don't know if Nick's even. I don't know if that's even no. But Nick, like we were talking about that before we started. Nick's a great.
He's probably from that place. He's probably from that place where where Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver came from in the Avengers, where they just sort of was it Sokovia? I think he's from there.
He's just Who knows with Nick? Yeah. You never know. He said mystery wrapped in an enigma. It's like I can't remember the Winston Churchill quote, but yeah. So
yes, that's our boy.
I want to tell everybody. So like, I want you to understand, like Pete is on his phone out in his garage. So it is choppy from times, but it sounds like the audio is fine. I'm not having a problem with the audio, but it has been choppy here and there. I have a question and I'm going to kind of skip forward a little bit because I have to ask, because I know I'm wearing a sweatshirt and you're sweating in a t-shirt. What's it like having Christmas in the summer? Because everyone forgets that, like, when you're in that southern hemisphere, like we have, like, most people think about it and they're like, "Oh, it's Christmas time, it's winter." But I've been in Australia in the winter, and it's winter where I was at, and you're like, "Good God, it's nightmarishly hot there."
But I'm in the south, so it's a dry heat. In Darwin, and probably perhaps even when it's more of a tropical heat. But I'm in the south, and it's a dry heat. Yeah. So it's. I guess, and the funny thing is, we still watch all the Christmas movies that you guys make over there. So all our movies are about snow and about Rockefeller Center and stuff. But Christmas is usually one of the hottest days of the year. So it's usually about 43 degrees
After
Celsius.
I had just said that the audio was fine.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Hey.
Can you guys hear me? I don't know what just happened, but me and Pete
we had a bit of a snafu, and I was staring awkwardly at the camera for a while. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know what just happened.
It just all went still for a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there was a disturbance in the force, and I was just staring down the barrel like a fucking idiot, just like. So
I should have kept my mouth shut when I said that this audio was great. The second I say the audio was great, then everything shut down. I'm like, God damn it. That's like, if you watch the video I put up today, that was the one that I was filming, and everything that could go, I was like, oh, everything's going good today. And then I was like, I shouldn't have said that, because then everything just went to shit. Now I forget what we were talking about because I smoke weed.
You're talking about Christmas in Australia when it's super duper hot. And it's just something you get used to. The worst thing is you have all your family around still, and every room, even if we've got a pretty top of the range air conditioner, but even with you, if you've got your 12 people, 15 people, your family in any room together, it just heats up so quickly. And you just usually end up with everyone broken up into different rooms. And yeah. So it's a bit of it's just a very Australian problem, I think. Like it's
Okay, so
yeah.
I have a friend who he's from England, but he has family in, I want to say Cairns, Australia. Like that's
Cairns, yeah,
up
yeah.
on
It's a
that's northeast, right?
Queensland, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but yeah, okay. So that's where he has family, and he said he spent a
Mm.
Christmas with his family, and his grandfather still was like, okay, it's Christmas, you have to do the Yule log, and he's like, so my grandfather starts the fucking fireplace. And he's like, it's
Oh no.
90 degrees in the fucking
Oh my
house, and he
God. Would have
lights the
killed everyone.
fireplace, and I was like, are you serious?
Mm.
He's like, I wouldn't shit you. You're my favorite turd. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's gotta suck. He goes, yeah. So there we are, all trying to eat Christmas dinner in the dining room where the fireplace is. And he goes, it had to have been 105 degrees in there. I was like, oh
Oh,
my God.
it's a horrific thing to do. My God, yeah. No, it's I do have a fireplace, but it's there's maybe 3 months of the year where it's cold enough to even entertain the idea. Like, wow,
Oh,
let
well,
alone in the middle of summer. That's how you kill your family.
I'm in San Diego and it's December. So it's like winter for it's January. I mean, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
67 degrees. It's 67 degrees in my garage, and I'm still wearing a
I need to get
sweatshirt
my
because I'm a wimp.
I need my unit converter because we do in Celsius over here, which is I think
Yeah.
is it like twice as
I don't
divide
know.
by
Hang
two
on a
or
second.
something Fahrenheit, something like that. Yeah,
So watch
there
this.
is a
I have the
calculator,
wealth
but
of human knowledge at my fingertips.
please, could you just punch in because today it's 37 degrees Celsius. So just write in that, and that's how hot it is in Fahrenheit for you guys. So you know,
What is
it's
67
warmish.
degrees in Celsius?
That would be
67.
19.4
Yeah.
degrees Celsius.
19.4 degrees in my garage right now
Okay,
in January,
that's
which
not
is
too bad.
winter.
So so I am right now. I'm 37 degrees Celsius
Oh,
here. So
it's warm.
it's
That's
fairly hot. Yeah. Most people seem to struggle with the heat the first couple of weeks that they're here, and then they kind of just get used to it. But
what
yeah.
is 37 degrees in Fahrenheit?
That would be 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's body temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Of course it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, and that's indoors and, like in my shed. In my house, it's lovely, but yeah, in my shed, it's a little bit hot for sure.
Cue ball, thank you very much. Mike, Peter, what an amazing night. So everybody's been looking forward to this. When I said I was going to have you on the channel, everybody was like, hey, really? This is great. So I was looking forward to it. So
Well,
I don't care whether they were or not. My buddy, so Matt here, who I'm not 100% sure if he's wearing pants, because that's one of the questions he asked if he had to have pants on for this, says it's minus 10 degrees in Wisconsin. It's cold.
Fahrenheit, I'm assuming.
That's well below zero. It doesn't matter. Once you're below zero, it's just fucking cold.
So cold, yeah, for sure.
What is this? Bill Bailey says Perth is having 8 days over 105 degrees Fahrenheit. You know what?
Sounds like something they do.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never been to Perth or Fremantle area where it wasn't just ungodly hot, like just crazy hot.
I think it contributes a lot to like the personality of the average Australian. I think when it's this hot all the time, there's very few things that you can be fucked getting like either here nor there too angry about. Like it's just we're always just in survival mode and just I think it's like living in a sauna all the time, and it's pretty hard to not be relaxed in a sauna. I think everyone's just
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it contributes a lot to the character of the place. It's a lot of people struggle with it at first, but I certainly wouldn't be without it. I quite like it. I think I'm used to it or whatever it is.
I spent years in like the southern part of Japan, and then I spent years in Iraq and Kuwait and Afghanistan, and then I moved out here to San Diego. I don't like the cold. Like my parents were like, how come you don't ever come home for Christmas? Before my dad passed away, they were like, you never come home. I was like, frozen water still falls out of the sky there, right? She's like, yeah. And I was like, that's why I don't come home in the winter. Fuck that. I don't like it
for sure.
I don't like it when
I've never
rain
seen snow in my life.
freezes.
Yeah.
You've never seen snow?
Not my life. It's just, and there's very few places in the country that you'd have to climb up some mountain in New South Wales to see snow.
That's what I was going to say. That you know what? This brings up a question. What has tried to kill you this week? Because everything in Australia is trying to kill you. The snakes, the spiders, the fucking crocodiles, everything, the sharks.
Well, I've got there's like a pile of refuse out the back that was here when we built the house. It sort of came with the house. And I was putting this as an old workbench that I broke up. I was just doing some moving shit around, and there was a eastern brown snake under there that made a bit of a hiss and a bit of a swipe at me. And an eastern brown snake's a fairly venomous snake.
No shit.
That it's just if you get bit by an eastern brown, that's like doing that full leg bandage all the way kind of territory and get into the hospital as quick as you can.
Isn't the
so there was one of those,
the eastern brown responsible for more deaths in Australia than any other snake?
I think just due to its sheer commonness, that's probably true. Yeah,
I mean,
it's probably one of the most common snakes.
It's a little dangerous. To see, Australians are all fucking crazy. They're all crazy. Every fucking one of them. Every one of them I've ever met.
It's funny, because we've been watching Alone lately. Do you know that show Alone?
Yeah.
We've been watching that, and there's been a bit of running commentary in our house, because when we think about it, though, we don't really have an apex predator here, particularly. Yeah, we've got lots of insipid creatures like snakes and spiders that'll get you, but we don't really have, because you see all these poor pricks on Alone dealing with like bears and mountain lions. And shit. And we don't have a whiff of that, except in Northern Territory and some parts of Queensland. They've got crocodiles, which you do not want to fuck with. They're horrific animals. They'll just mercilessly kill anything. But
the first time I ever went to Darwin, we asked the lady at the hotel, I was like, hey, where can we go swim in the ocean? She's like, oh, boys, you don't want to go swim in the ocean. And I was like, what? She's like, if the crocodiles don't get you, the sharks will. And we were like, what? She goes,
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go in the ocean up here.
Yeah. Or just in the water in general, I suppose. Yeah, the water is bad, but in general terms, we don't really have an apex predator that will like hunt you and kill you if you go camping. So if you go out in the spring and the proper big bull kangaroos are like all in like they want to fuck mode, then they might like box on with you or something. Like if you walk too close to the Valley of their Virgins or whatever like that, they might sort of get up in your face a bit. But even then, they're not out to kill you and eat you, sort of thing. So it is generally going to be scorpions, snakes, spiders here that do your mischief.
Yeah, it was interesting because we stayed in Darwin and stuff like that, and like in the hotel, like they would tell you like check your shoes. Like check your shoes for and I was like, what? And I was like, I didn't know I had to check my shoes in a hotel for venomous creatures. Like being in the military, like out in the field. Yeah, you want to check your shoes for like scorpions and centipedes and shit. But like at a hotel, it was kind of interesting. Yeah.
These are things that I guess probably are normalized to me. So I leave my shoes outside most nights just because I'm lazy. And when you do, there you go. Australia is just Florida's long lost cousins. That's true. When I leave my shoes out on my porch, most mornings if I wake up, if I was to just slip my foot into them, I'd probably get bitten by something. So unless you want to be good and take your shoes inside, which you can never be bothered. So usually I'll take them out, turn them upside down and bang them, and something will usually fall out of them. But only half the time is it probably something that's poisonous.
I'm not gonna lie, I do it here. We have black widows and stuff like that, and we do have down here in San Diego. We have actually the brown widows have taken over. Okay, so I have some actual knife. We're 30 minutes in. I have some actual knife questions because this is a knife
probably
channel.
Talk about knives at some point.
We don't have people to. Want. Not necessarily. These live feeds they turn into a free for all. Who knows? So what is your favorite blade shape and size? So for like work purposes, what's your favorite blade shape and what kind of size range?
Okay, so visually, my favorite blade shape visually is probably this one here on the Lion Steel guitar. I just think that looks amazing.
That is a good looking blade.
Speaking, that's probably my favorite blade shape, how it looks. But then to actually use a knife, probably something like this guy. This is the TRM Atom. It's about perfect. You can't go wrong really with that blade shape. And I guess you're thinking,
what about
the leaf shaped blades? I suppose. Yeah,
I've gotten. I designed that little Warncliffe fixed blade that I came up with. I really had not gotten into Warnies until my buddy Nico and my buddy Matt bought me. Where's it at? It's right here. They bought me a Ferrum Forge Master Blaster, and they had Elliot do all the carving and stuff. And I had never really
Mm.
gotten into the Warncliffe blades so much. I mean, I was in the Navy, so you know, your maritime knives, they were
Yeah,
the
they're all
sheep's
warnies,
foot.
aren't they? Yeah. Sheep foot.
And
Yeah.
and I was like, I really never got into them too much. And then I did some construction for a while, and I saw how good these can be. And then I designed that little fixed blade. And I was like, wow, I really, really have gotten into like the Warncliffe blades because they're so versatile for certain, you have so much cutting edge and it stays in contact with the material all the way to the tip. Where if you've got like a drop point, you have flat, 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 and then it wants to slip off.
You've got that belly. And for newer folks, Warncliffe is the easiest thing to sharpen in the world as well. So excellent starting point for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to sharpen.
I always find with Warncliffes the same problem as like the craft knife though. I always find just the tip does, because I seem to be doing most of my cutting against the board. So the tip just does all the work. Whereas if you have something with a bit of belly, even this 940, you've just got to save that much more area that's doing like my board cutting. But so that's probably what's kept me from having too many Warnies in my collection. It's like Tantos as well, the same. Like I don't particularly use much more of the Tanto than probably this absolute corner here, because it's usually just doing board cutting. So
yeah. I'm not such a big fan. I'm not such a big fan of the Americanized Tanto, the American style Tanto. But I took martial arts in Japan for years, and I took the sword art, like the sword cutting and things like that. And so with that went the Japanese style Tanto dagger, and those I could see really, really well being utilized. But I'm not such a big fan of the American style Tanto. And I say that even though this is my favorite knife ever, which is basically just a take on an Americanized Tanto. But
it's like an artistic rendition of it.
Yeah, dude, this is such a good. I love this knife so much. It's so good. But okay, so what kind of size range are you talking about? I mean, because I've gotten to where I like some of the smaller, like 3-inch blade knives, almost like a gentleman's folder. Yeah, but there's a lot of things in my life that have changed as I've gotten older. I'm not doing things that I was a few years ago.
I think with me at the moment, it's more about because this is quite a large knife, really. This is the knife I'm carrying the most by choice when I'm not reviewing anything. And this is like a 4-inch blade almost. But the thing about it is, but it doesn't really take up much space in my pocket still. So I think it's more the dimensions this way that's causing me more, more choice and more issues. Because I mean, truth be told, when I carry the TRM Neutron and when I carry the TRM Atom, I'm never really wanting if I'm ever carrying this, I'm never thinking, oh geez, if only that blade was like 3/4 of an inch longer. It doesn't really, that's really something I noticed. Like it seems such a marginal thing.
Right.
So I think with me generally, as long as it fits in the pocket well, it's sort of doing most of its work there, really. Like your knife's in your pocket for 95% of the day. And as long as it's comfy in there, I don't really mind if the blade's like on the longer side. A really short blade would probably cause me a few annoyances just because I'd run out of real estate to cut with. But most of my knives seem to be out of 3.5 to 4 inches lately. I mean, I love my Spyderco Police, which is
that's such a good. That is one of those Spydercos that's up there on a list of things that I wish.
Yeah.
That I had one and I got rid of it, and now I wish I'd never done. That's on it's on a short list of knives, and I'm like, God, why'd I ever get rid of that thing? That Almar Eagle. I had an Almar Eagle and have regretted from that, like a week after I sold it. And I've regretted it since then. It was a knife that I really didn't carry all that much. I didn't see so much that I was carrying it and using it, and I got rid of it. And then I haven't been able to find one. And I was like, God,
that's the thing. They stopped making them in this format.
I know, but
they're Chinese made and they're made of HCRs. They kind of look a bit similar, but they're flippers and it just doesn't do it.
I had one of these old school,
these old polished, the polished micarta AUS 8.
I had one of those, and I regret it. When I saw your video, I think I made a comment about it. I was like, that is one of the knives that I got rid of that I regret having, and then be like, I don't need it, I don't carry it. And that's why, like, my wife's like, when are you going to get rid of some of these knives? I was like, never, because every time I've gotten rid of a knife, I wind up regretting it.
You get those moments of madness where you just need to free up some cash for the next knife. And if that next knife isn't everything you hoped and dreamed it would be, you always end up fucking regretting the sale. And I've had that a few times now. So I generally just buy less knives.
Yeah.
I just slow myself down, and if I can't afford a knife, I'll wait till I can, and I won't sell something to get something. My biggest regret was I used to have a Lion Steel T5, and it was like my favorite fixed blade knife. And I just had one of those stupid moments of madness where I just sold it and I can't even remember what I sold it for. And I just haven't been able to find one at a good time when I've had the free cash, all that sort of stuff. It hasn't lined up since, but I regret that sale ever since. It's very frustrating.
I had someone that was trying to justify to me, because here's the thing. I'm friends with John and Eric Grimsmo. I've fostered a friendship, not necessarily in person, but I've talked to him on the phone. Back in the day, I had one of these on order. And I hate the idea of how many clones, how many fakes of this are out there. And people just try to justify like, oh, I bought a clone because I can't afford $1,000 knife. And I was like, yes, you can. Everyone can.
You just need to wait. Yeah.
I had an old scotch. I used to drink scotch all the time. And I had the cardboard tubs, the cardboard tubes that the bottle of scotch came in. And I filled that up with pennies and quarters and any time I had change. And I would put it into this account. And there were times I had to dip into that account. And I got to where I could afford it. And it took me about 5 years. But I found the one I wanted and I bought it secondhand. I mean, still, it was like I paid with shipping and tax probably about $1,000 for it. But still, I did not compromise. I bought that. And that's a problem with a lot of people. Like, oh, I'll just buy a clone. You're never going to get the same experience.
It'll feel hollow. That taste will turn to ash in your mouth as soon as you take it out of its box. You just And the thing is, if you've saved up for 5 years, or even for 6 months, like that money was so gradually built, you're not even going to feel. Because I often feel regret spending big sums of money on things. Because then immediately you think to myself, with me, my metric is always it's a mortgage payment, So it's like, but if I've gradually saved up money bit by bit, it's gone. Like, and it's, that was exactly what that money was for. And that, that money fulfilled its life's journey, and now it's a knife. And so you don't feel bad about it at all. So best way to do it, just do it slowly, save.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, and like I said, it took me a long time. I had a separate account for it. My wife knew that that's what that money was for. But there was times like we had to buy blades for my daughter's figure skates, and we just I had a government job that was just destroying my soul, and I quit and I started my own business, and things have been tight, and so I had to dip into that once or twice to pay for things, because what's going to trump my Grail knife is anything for my kid. So
that's true.
But it made that knife mean so much more, because I had to wait for it. I had to work for it. I had to earn that
It's had a journey,
knife. Yeah.
The only thing that stops most of our knives from just becoming like so resellable is it's why I always say, like, you get a bit of use on it, you get a bit of patina on it, that makes it your knife. And if even like the journey towards getting the knife puts some of like the character in that knife for you already, it's like it's already part of your permanent collection generally, if you've gone through any sort of adversity to get it,
Well, and then like I said, with the five knives that make me smile, and you commented on it. I have some knives that are in my collection that were very thoughtful gifts from some really good friends. Like that right there is all three of them together. It's not just that Nico and Matt paid the cost of this. Elliot knew me well enough to make a knife that he knew I was going to love. And the thought that went into that, like, what does Mike like? On top of the fact that the other two guys had paid for it, Elliot knew exactly what he needed to make for me. And that says a lot about the kind of friendship that we had formed. And so this is something that I don't care what happens in my life. This is going to stay and go to my daughter and things like that. So yeah, that was.
Are you going to be buried? Are you going to be buried with a knife? Is that something that you think about at all?
Here's the thing. Like I've said it for years. I want to be cremated, and I want to have my ashes have to go 3 places. They have to go on the farm back home. They have to go in a small urn in my wife's family plot in Japan, and the rest of it has to be scattered over the ocean, because being at sea was I've never been as happy.
3 things,
Yep, I've never been as happy in life as I ever was when I was at sea on a ship. I loved being a sailor. I loved being in the Navy. I can't think of anything else I could have done for my adult life and loved as much as I love being in the military. And being at sea was my favorite thing. My wife hated it. I was like, man, I wish the ship had gotten underway. I loved being at sea. there's just something about doing your job and being at sea and just being out there in the middle of nothing. And it's just amazing. I loved it. So like that's the three places that I would be happy. That's the three places that my soul would be happy. So spread those ashes out across those three places.
Oh, that's nice. That must be how, like, it almost sounds like how an astronaut must feel out in space kind of thing, when you're just in the middle of a big nothing and you feel so small and helpless and all that. So
well, I grew up in a country and I had never seen the ocean. And the second I saw the ocean, there was a bond that was formed that like I can't live that far.
Or and to be comfortable out where you can't see land anymore is something that's rare. Like most people aren't at all, which I certainly wouldn't be. I'd feel very sort of helpless and small. But yeah, I suppose some people find like that an interesting feeling or whatever.
Yeah.
So yes.
Let me see. Okay, so we've gotten that far. I mean, I know that you have your garden and all that stuff, but what other hobbies besides knives do you have?
Well, yeah, I guess you touched on it. So I am currently growing potatoes and zucchinis, and I'm just always fussing with. I've got an orchard going. I've got a whole bunch of oranges, and it's a citrus orchard at the moment, with some stone fruit going as well. So I sort of fuss about with that. So it's probably an hour each day, like just getting my composts and stuff right, and getting like my,
okay, for us Yanks, what's stone fruit? What's stone fruit for us Yankees?
Oh, sorry, apples,
okay.
Plums,
okay.
Those sorts of
Okay, I got you.
The fruits with the fruits that the birds will eat off the trees. If you don't hang up a big bird scare. So generally they're deciduous trees, so citrus or evergreens. So yeah, I'm growing a few fruit trees. Well, probably about 18 or 20 of them or something like that at the moment. And yeah, I grow a bit. I've got my chickens, but I'm the generation I play video games a bit when I've got the time. I work a lot. My wife works a lot. So the kids are at the parents' house this weekend, so we'll probably just spend most of the weekend like cuddled up in bed, like watching movies and stuff. We're gonna watch June tonight. So I do like films. I do like I'm just like a pretty basic person. I like all my Netflix series and things like that. Right now we're watching Peacemaker, which is funny. It's good. It's on like the what's it, Binge, I think it is here. It's like that streaming service. Yeah. So it's good. But yeah, just your basic stuff. Apart from all my gardening, I'm pretty regular in that I just enjoy, like for someone my age, I like I've got my Nintendo Switch. I play on that a fair bit, like when I've got the time. But yeah, I've usually got about 2 hours worth of work every day just around my property. Like tomorrow I'm building this fucking thing here, which is like it's like a standing garden shed.
Yeah.
So it's like so that's going to be a fucking pain in the ass bullshit day of swearing and oh man,
your wife is going to be upset with you when she sees your bank account, because you regardless of what video it is, you drop at least like $10 every video I do. You don't have to do that, Aiden. You're a paying member. I like, here's the thing. Like I was talking to my sister. So you're absolutely still just a country boy. My sister and I were talking about it, and I was like, I talk country, I dress country, I act country, but I got news for you. Like I couldn't go back to living 30 minutes from nearest grocery store or gas station. Like I literally can walk to the Mexican restaurant. Like if I drink too much and I decide I want to go get a sandwich, I can literally walk to the nearest fast food place in probably 10 minutes. I can't do that where I'm from in Ohio.
No, it's not something I could do out here. That's for sure. Yeah. My biggest nightmare, my day-to-day nightmare is there's a house that's probably maybe 200 meters away from me that way. And it's currently like, I think it's in flux about who owns it. And so my biggest nightmare is that some people are going to move there that I don't like the look of and that are going to, like, I don't know, somehow infringe upon my personal space. And so those are the problems you have when you live rurally. You worry that someone's going to come and make your life less peaceful. So that's the sort of stuff that I worry about. That keeps me up at night.
So my dad used to joke about it because they had gotten some neighbors. So I inherited our farm, and my dad was like, hey, do you want to sell your grandparents' old house? And I'm like, it's kind of falling apart. And so my dad was like, all right, we'll put it on the market. And we sold. And it's literally, like you said, it's maybe 200, maybe 150 meters down the road from the house that I built that my parents live in. And what are you doing? Hey, knock it off, dumbass. So my dad, so these people moved into this farm, and they were kind of from the city. They weren't farmers. They bought this, had a big barn and everything. And they were like, oh, you guys can still use the barn for whatever. And I'm like, cool, because my moonshine still's in there. But at any rate, my dad was like, yeah, the new neighbors, he's like, they waved at me twice. I'm thinking we might have to move, because my dad was so antisocial. He's like, I don't want him thinking that I want him to come talk to me. He's like,
it's exactly right. You're like, oh man, that's me exactly. It's sort of like, you don't want to be too friendly, because then they might just come and knock on your back door. Like,
I don't want him showing up here.
I'd be hiding behind the fucking couch. No fucking I'd be like, I'm the kind of guy. If we don't have a landline phone anymore, because simply when it rang, I just wouldn't want to answer it. Like, when I'm at my house, I just don't want anyone to trouble me at all. And the thing is, and this sounds so unneighborly, because I guess I'm an unneighborly guy, but the only thing you've got in common with your neighbors are that they live next to you. They
decided to buy a house in your area.
What basis for a friendship is that? Fucking zero is what I say. But then half the people you're with, I better go and make ourselves known to neighbors, better go and introduce ourselves. And I'm just like, nope, I'm good. Like,
I remember hearing my mom say, oh, well, the new neighbors that bought your grandparents' house, they're like, oh, I'm going to go introduce myself. And I hear my dad in the background like, fucking why? I don't need, I talk to enough people every fucking day. I don't need to talk to them.
And it's one of those things. You always hear people bemoaning, when people are complaining about how the times today are so bad. Oh, no one even knows their neighbors anymore. You always hear it. It's like, why do you want to know your neighbors? But why do you really want to know your neighbors? I promise you, if I heard my neighbors getting killed and I heard blood-curdling screams, just out of sheer human decency, I'd go in and check on them. But it doesn't mean I need to know their fucking names, their favorite foods, if they've got a weird relationship with their wife, whatever it is. I don't need to know all that stuff. Like, so I'm good with just this level of distance, and that's the best. I think
you say you would go check on them. I'd be like, you say you go check on them. I'd be like, maybe like, maybe the bad guy's still there. Maybe I don't want to go over there.
Out of curiosity, you'd go and poke your head over the fence. You'd give a bit of a Wilson and have a bit of a look. And these, you're all right over there. Whatever, but. Yeah, that's what you do. But
I have to tell you, I can literally knock, like, if something was awry. Like, I told Anthony, my neighbor, because my garage wall and his garage wall are the same wall. There's just like a wall in between.
Oh no.
Like, it's really tight. I mean, but this is a nice neighborhood. But I told him, I was like, look, if you hear me pounding on the wall, I want you to get help. Like, that's what I want. Like, if you hear me beating on the bedroom wall, that's my sign. He was like, okay, I got you.
Really? It's a bit of a high risk thing to say to someone, Mike.
I actually have some really good neighbors. They're pretty good. They look out for each other. We keep an eye on everybody's place and stuff like that. But I 100% understand that. Like, the only bond that I have with my neighbors is that we decided to buy a house in the same area. It's 100% true.
And you just need to make sure there's no other reasons why there's banging on your bedroom wall, Mike. That's the problem now.
The headboard's on a different wall. We just made sure.
Good. Fair enough.
But I'm 50. I'm almost 50, and my wife and I've been married for 20 years. So like that's not a common fucking occurrence.
No, sure, yeah, that's what they all say.
Well, we have been married for 20. Okay, so I have to ask you. I'm going to scroll down a bit because you showed it. That lion steel slip joint. How do you feel about it now? I know you don't like. I'm not a big fan of a slip joint deployment, but how do you feel about it now versus how you did when you did the video? Because I like that. I still feel dumb for buying it.
I still feel mega dumb for buying it because I'm never going to choose to carry this over my anything else. Like, and why do we do these things? Like, my stupid brain is going, well, you need a slip joint for your collection. And then my rational brain's like, why? So you can remind yourself every day that you'll never fucking carry a slip joint? Like, I don't understand it, but I bought it.
There's $100 I'll never get back. It's a nice, like, I have to admit, that's a nice looking knife.
It smells like olive oil. Like, it's all very lovely, but it doesn't change the fact that because every time you have to do this to close it, why would I choose that when there's heaps of other really cool knives here that you can just be like, oh, Spidey Chef, it's open now and it's time to close it. Oh, done. Rather than like, this is just never preferable. It's like the same reason it's like there's a few reasons you'd still ride a horse to work, right? And that's because you really fucking love horses, and that's about it. That's that's why you would do that. Otherwise, you'd
Or
use a car.
if you live
And
where I lived,
yeah,
and there were kids that actually rode their horses to school.
because you have them in abundance, and yeah, you do it. But I don't know. Like I guess it's nice to keep for the collection, and it's like a good slip joint knife. It seems like it's well done, but
it looks
whenever
nice.
I say anything good about it, it's full of qualifiers. Like it's all these qualifiers for it, which is not how I talk about other knives that are generally just really good. Like there are no qualifiers I need to tell anyone when I'm saying that the TRM Neutron is great because it's just an overall great knife that you can just use very easily. And I don't know, it's
I have some slip joints, and I still carry some slip joints, and I have some of the double detent. Like this is that double detent EWC that doesn't lock. I kind of dig those, but they're for little tasks. Like this is not like something I'm going to carry day to day. This is like in my pocket, in my pajamas around the house, doing little tasks, things like that. Because it is nice and light and it carries well. But yeah, I like some slip joints, and that's a good looking knife, but I really think that would be better served as like a flipper or a thumb stud operator. That's a good looking knife. That is a nice looking design.
They are. They're good. I mean, if this is just sitting on, like, the good thing about this is every single human can use this knife, like, because this is what everyone recognizes the pocket knife as. So if I just leave this on the kitchen bench, my wife will just, because what does someone do when you give them a knife? Like, so say you give someone a Benchmade knife that's not into knives, right? The first thing they do is go like this.
Yeah.
Like in my experience, that's what most people do. They don't even know, they don't recognize the thumb stud at all. They think the thumb stud's some like aesthetic feature, right? So I guess like if this is just sitting around and you summon, oh, there's a knife over there. Can you just use that to cut that? Oh yeah, cool. They'll pick it up and they'll go, oh, and it's done. So I guess
I have a lot of knives that I would be. I have a lot of knives that I would be hesitant to hand to someone that's not into knives. Like, hey,
yeah, that's the thing.
Do you know how this works? And they're like, no. Well, give me that knife back because I know how sharp I keep my shit, and you're going to hurt yourself.
Well, I find that with liner locks all the time. You give someone a liner lock, like even a frame lock's a bit more obvious, but you give someone a liner lock who's not a knife person,
they want to push in on it.
You get a couple of these before they start even looking at it, and you go, "Oh, it's just that little leaf there." And they always try to push,
or they try to push in on it. And you're like, "Bro, you're fucking up my lock bar. You're fucking up my lock bar. Stop." So if you don't know how to use it, ask.
So for those people, this is fine. This or a lockback is fine, I guess. But yeah, it's just I will not get another slip joint while this one is in my collection. That's for sure. But because I'm dumb, I'll probably always have a slip joint in my collection.
I'm not going to buy any more slip joints ever again. I have some really old ones. I have ones that were my grandfather's and stuff. I have an old Barlow that was my grandfather's that didn't make it into my full collection. Like there's some good ones. I have to call out before I forget if he's still here. Jared Neves, I was talking with him about this Megaron Valona, and I was like, there's a good chance that I'm going to forget to put this in the box and have to send it to you later. And he goes, why don't you just keep it? So I once again have been gifted a very nice knife from Mr. Jared Neves. I really like this. This is a DC-53 steel. Have you gotten to handle anything in DC-53 steel yet?
I've never even heard of that steel. What sort of steel is it? Is it a tool steel or is it a stainless steel?
So it's a tool steel, and it's along the lines. The closest comparison, and I hate doing this because it's comparing steels, even if they're slightly different in composition, is like apples and oranges. But the closest comparison everyone's making is D2. It's like a harder, more stainless version of D2, but it seems to sharpen a little easier. It seems to take a better edge. It takes an edge.
Sounds a lot like sounds like Nylox.
That's what I was getting ready to say. It's and I was getting ready to say it's a lot like Nylox. I have had knives in Nylox, but the edge it takes is not like Nylox. It's more like that crisp, really aggressive edge you get from 14C28N. So you know how 14C takes a crisper edge than Nylox or D2. D2 has a tendency to have a little bit more of a smoother. This is like this is at 8,000 grit, and it is super frighteningly aggressive. So it's an interesting steel, and I like it. And the Migron knives, they're doing a really good job. So
what's Migron? I've never even heard of Migron knives.
Migron
Are
Knives
they
is
like are they Chinese?
it's a Chinese company, and it's just like
Yeah.
basically one guy, and it's hard to
Okay.
get them. They're in and out of stock and things like
All
that.
right.
And
Okay, so boutique and small. Yeah.
I don't think it's powdered. I honestly don't. I put up a spec sheet in the video I did about this where it talked about it. It's a die and tool steel. But it's,
Okay.
I mean, it's like, I love the edge that's on it. It's super aggressive at every grit. I took it all the way to 12,000 grit. I took it back down to 8. I did it at 5. And I'm like, wow, I did it on diamond. I did it on aluminum oxide. Like I sharpened it like 8 different times because I was like, it just likes everything. It takes a crisp edge on any stone. So I like it. And these are like,
what's it called again?
$50.
DC 53.
DC 53.
DC 53. I'll look it up. I was watching Lion still doing their booth at SHOT Show. I wasn't even aware of K490 steel. I wasn't even aware that such a steel existed.
I've heard of it, but I've never gotten to handle it.
Yeah, so it's like they've brought down. I think they've brought down the vanadium and increased the tungsten, or the other way around, whatever it is. So it's actually drastically different to K390 from like it's because obviously K390 is probably could be one of my favorite steels, just as a general sense. And so Lion's still making a fixed blade, and this like K490 stuff looked really, really cool. And again, like steel just moves that fast. Just hadn't even heard of it before, and I'm like supposed to be a steel guy. It's bizarre.
Well, and so I like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, Mike's a steel guy, sharpen stuff." Like I know that different steels, I have different stones for stuff like that. But to tell you the truth, some of the steels that I really enjoy are like some of the ingot steels. Like I like 14C. I like 440C. I like some of the older, and I like some of the newer stuff. Artisan, my knife was one of the first knives that got released in their AR RPM 9, which is not to like downplay it. It's like a powdered version of 9CR with some cobalt in it. And that cobalt gave it some really interesting properties. Like I've cut cardboard and cut cardboard and cut cardboard, and then been able to strop it right back up on a piece of newspaper, right back to hair, whittle, and sharp. And you're like, that's a unique property in a steel. So it's kind of,
for sure.
It's kind of interesting.
I've had that stuff. I've had that on a CJRB something or a rear, I think it was.
Yeah, probably the rear.
Still did well on my testing.
I liked ARPM 9, and like, you know, for especially like everybody's like, oh, you could have done this, you could have done this, and I was like, okay, everybody wanted an S35 VN version of my Sea Snake knife. So they did one for Blade Show West, and they did it. It was all serialized. There was only 60 of them. It went from like a $50 knife to a $160 knife because upgrades in steel and handle material. I was like, that's not what I wanted in that knife. Like I wanted to keep it affordable. So there's some steels out there that are really good at a fairly cheap price.
There's so many good affordable steels. I mean, you look how much like Nitro V and AEBL is being used, and that stuff's great. It's fine. Like it's and there's no need. I mean, ideally people would phase out entirely like just the basic 420 or 400 series, but I mean, most I know CRKT is still clutching onto the 8CR13 and whatnot, but I mean, I think even that still
7CR, those ones are
I would be happy if they all went, but I think most things even slightly above that, they're just absolutely fine for as long as you know what you're paying for. You know, it might be sharpening a little bit more often. Absolutely fine.
Well, I did
Magna Cut. Yeah.
I did a knife in Maximet. I sharpened a knife in Maximet. It's time consuming, but here's my thing. Like everybody's like raving about like Rex 121 and Maximet, and I'm still saying like I don't think you should make knives out of that, because the problem is people get them and they assume they're going to be able to treat them like the rest of their knives. So you do it on a regular stone, the regular methods, and you're ruining that knife. And it took a while for me to put the edge back up on that Maximet today.
Need them diamonds, that's for sure.
Yeah, you absolutely have to have diamonds.
It's just the hardness that does it as well. Just like nothing, most bench stones aren't going to be hard enough.
They're one of the few it's one of the few knife steels that you have to have diamonds for, because it's tungsten carbide versus. So it's a 9 on a Rockwell. If you're using aluminum oxide's 9 on a rock, or on the not the Rockwell, the Mohs, on the Mohs hardness scale.
Yeah, the Mohs. So,
yeah, it's like rubbing two glasses together and expecting to get anywhere with it.
Just bounce off of each other.
I saw you break that out, which brought me to another question. fixed blade versus
Magna Cut,
folding. Yeah. Is that a
Ooh.
Spyderco?
This is a Magna Cut Mule. I've got 2 of them, and I've got to do some testing. And I've got a friend Chris, and he loves the thrill of the chase of getting the hard to find knives. So when these were announced, it was kind of one of those things you have to get in line for, pretty much. And I hate that. That immediately turns me off. But luckily enough, I've got a friend who is happy to do that, and so I just send him money and sort of say, "Hey, man, yeah, if you can come across that for me, that'd be great." So he's like, "I'm going to get one for myself and one for you," and I'm like, "Cool." And then he gets one and he's like, "What am I going to use this knife for? It doesn't even have a handle." So he sent me both of them. So it'll be good for my testing metrics. I'll be able to have 2 knives in the same steel with the same edge and all that sort of stuff. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You've got
with regard to your question,
you have some shops. You have some shop area where you could probably manufacture a handle for that if you wanted.
I may well do that as well, because the Mule is a good little fixed blade knife. It's absolutely fine. It's just because they come so spare and sparse, like it just doesn't happen often. Most of them are just these weird skeletal handles. And the paracord wrap has never quite done it for me, so I need to make a proper handle. But a lot of folks say to me, "Oh, you need to get all your twisted sisal ropey cut and smush it together into bricks and make some handles out of it." So maybe one day I'll do that. But with regard to your question, fixed blade versus folder, I think in the hand, I'll always prefer a fixed blade. Like when I do all my edge testing and whatnot, I always love a fixed blade knife. This is an Alex Dron. He's my favorite fixed blade maker. He's like a little part-time custom maker, and I think his knives are absolutely gorgeous.
That's a good. I like those handles. Is that what is that? Ironwood?
Yeah, it's like a curly burly sort of ironwood. Yeah,
That's
one of those. It's probably got a fair bit of lacquer in it to like make it this stable, but yeah, it's a very nice sort of wood finished handle there. Very good. But that's one of the perks of living on a block. You can roll around most days with a fixed blade knife on your belt and not feel like a complete fucking tool. So yeah, because you actually got a reason to be breaking it out and using it. So the other day
you can actually as much as I don't agree with a lot of the fucking rules and regulations, I just block somebody because they're being a dick about the whole California thing, and I warned them before. As much as I hate the rules and stuff, San Diego, like California, is not bad when it comes to knife stuff. Firearms, yeah, horrible. But when it comes to knife stuff, they're really not that bad. In San Diego, as long as it's showing, you can carry a fixed blade at any size you want, and there's no restrictions in San Diego you can carry. Like I could carry this and not be outside of any regulations in San Diego. So
as long as it's not concealed, because they get hung up on the concealment, don't they? Is that the thing? Like they get hung up on it. You're trying to keep it a secret. Is that?
And I don't know why fixed blades have to be out. But if you're carrying a folding knife, they don't care. A folding knife is outside of that, and I'm like, that's like wiping before you poop. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, now if you drive an hour and a half up the road, you can't carry anything. And if you go to San Francisco or LA, anything with a blade, I think San Francisco is anything that's 3 inches, anything more than 3 inches. You can. I think Los Angeles is 2.5, and you can't carry any fixed blades.
Right.
So, like I said, like California, the state law is really lax. Like you can carry whatever you fucking want. If it's a fixed blade, it's got to be exposed. But when you get to like different municipality, it's each municipality has their own little, which makes it really difficult.
It just sounds needlessly complex, doesn't it? I guess you've got such a large population over there. See, our states, each Australian state has maybe 5 million people in it. So I guess it's not too.
There's almost that many people in San Diego, California. Yeah, like in San Diego County, you're looking at almost that many people in the county.
And each of our states has like a premier, which sounds a bit like how you guys have governors and things. But then I noticed in America, your mayors actually have power as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
so
you're
the mayor.
Cities, So in Australia,
really
the mayor
convoluted. It gets too. It's too much.
In an Australian district, the mayor might the mayor could be in charge of maybe where the new basketball the basketball stadium is being built, or like, what day the bins get collected on. That's the mayor sort of level of stuff. Whereas it seems in America, like mayors have more to do with like the local police and everything. Is that right? And
yeah.
Yeah, so
basically they
it's
set the
it
budget
seems so
for
much
them.
more
Yeah,
convoluted.
it's ridiculous. As
Yeah,
much as
right.
I love America, I do have to admit that the way we do things,
There's lots of layers, isn't it? Yeah, you can
it's so many
feel. You
layers, and
always feel
it's
like
hard. It's
You always
hard to
feel like you'd
figure out.
simplify it a bit. Yeah. It sort of keeps the laws murky because there's so many different like personalities and layers in between them all. It's
Yeah,
you might get a governor who's really pro this, but then he's in a state that's really anti that, and so they're always at odds. And it's just it always just seems a bit
yeah,
a bit tricky.
yeah, and I
Mm,
mean, I've been American my entire life, and I have a hard time
mm.
understanding it. You're like, God, it can be so
Yeah,
confusing. But I mean, like, as long
yeah.
as here's the thing, like I said about like individual like officers, I've gotten pulled over. I got pulled over for a turn signal that didn't work, and a couple of cops followed one of the cops followed my channel, and he was like, "Hey, you're crazy sharp." He's like, "Is that your knife case?" Because we had opened it up to see why my turn signal didn't work. I was like, "I know I
Yeah,
turned my
yeah,
turn signal on." And I didn't want to tell him it's because I've been smoking weed and I'm very, very, very
yeah.
conscientious driving when I've been, because I was taking surface streets and I was pulling out of a grocery store and like my turn signal would go on. What had happened was like the entire housing for the light had fallen out, and they helped me fucking pry it out and re-put it in. And then he was like, "Is that your knife case?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So in my knife case, I had my autos, which are illegal.
Oh, right.
And they're playing with them. I was like, "Oh, is that one of the Ultratech with the small ones?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, let me see that." Completely cool with it. Like, didn't fucking care.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's on a case by case thing a lot of times. Like most cops
It
will be
really
like,
is.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not causing a problem. Just fucking don't do it again." So it
Yeah,
just
just
depends.
don't draw their attention is really it.
Exactly.
Most people, I think, most people want to start and finish their day without having to have had touched too many people. I think that's most people's rules of life. So yeah, I guess you just
Yeah.
don't give a reason to, and you hope that'll keep you on keep you in the clear.
Yeah, I mean, but it is strange. And like you were talking about, like, because I lived in Japan for 13 years, and I've carried knives. I took knives to Japan. I carried them, and then my father-in-law was like, you brought that? I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "They didn't take it from you at customs?" I was like, "No." And he goes, "You can't carry that." And I was like, "I carried knives for 13 years while I was here." And he goes, "No, I think it's 3 centimeters in Japan is the longest knife you
Oh,
can carry."
okay.
Which is that's tiny. 3 centimeters is a
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah,
knife.
yeah.
And
That's like an inch. Yeah.
you have to have a reason to be carrying that knife. Like you have to like, "Oh, I'm a carpenter," or "I do this," and things like that.
Ah,
And I was like,
that's basically just only knives like this, really, isn't it?
"Yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
just tiny."
That
But
that would be that would be about 3 centimeters. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
they're tiny. And like he was showing me
Hmm.
like what you can. And I was like, "Nah, I'm carrying this." And he goes, "Okay." But
And
the whole
again,
thing
like,
is,
because what are
I'm
your
not going to
chances of
break the
actually being
law.
stopped? Yeah,
Exactly. Like
exactly
they're not
right.
going to. What are they
Yeah,
going to stop? What are they going to stop me for? I'm not going to break the law.
exactly. 'Cause unless you're doing something else that draws their attention, they're not really going to have a reason to search and seize it either. Like, yeah, I think, and
Exactly.
that's generally what protects most of us here in Australia. I think there's a lot of knife guys in Australia. Most of them probably in states that you're not supposed to carry at all unless you're on your way to do something. Because really, you could, if you were to carrying, if I was to be stopped carrying this fixed blade knife, for example, and say, oh, what's this for? In this nightmare scenario where you've got stopped by some cop who just wants to pinch you, you'd say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm on my way to go camping. It's a it's a
Yeah.
firecraft tool or whatever it is," and you'd be fine. Like as long as in your car you also had your camping backpack and a woolen blanket and a sleeping bag, you'd be fine. If your car
Yeah.
was full of computers and whatever, he'd probably say, "Oh, that doesn't pass the bullshit test." But
It's
like
kind of the
generally
same thing.
speaking, though,
It's kind of the same thing here with a baseball bat. Like you can carry a baseball bat in your car if you're
well,
going to
yeah,
play baseball, but you have a glove and some balls. But if you get pulled over and you just
that's
have
the
a
thing.
bat in your car, they can
Yeah.
actually get you for carrying a weapon. And I'm like, "No, I'm going to play." And so like I got pulled over to one time and I had
Mm.
a bat, and this was on the base. And he goes, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I'm going to go meet my wife at the batting cages right after work." And he was like,
Mm.
"So," I was like, "Yeah, I didn't bring my glove or anything. We're just going batting practice." But I had
To
one
the
of my
cages,
wife's
yeah,
softball bats in the car. But
yeah.
I also worked on the base police. I worked at their station. So I mean, he was
Yeah,
more
yeah.
inclined to believe me, but he was like,
Yeah, you were
Bill
probably gonna
Bailey,
be alright from the beginning, but yeah.
Bill Bailey, this is my favorite knife. This has been a grill knife of mine for a long time. I carry it all the time. This is my Grimsmo Norseman and a reverse honeycomb, and I two-toned the pocket clip. I did a lot of anodizing and stuff on this, but this is my favorite knife of all time. I carry it constantly. So Bill Bailey had asked that. I thought I would answer it real quick.
Fair enough. I saw Bill.
I thought you had to carry a katana over there. Actually, there is a so in Japan, it's weird. There is a Bureau of Firearms and Swords. So if your family owns a sword or a firearm, because you can have firearms for hunting in Japan, you have to register them with the Bureau of Firearms and Swords. It's kind of a weird thing, but they actually do have that.
Firearms I get, but swords is a bit strange. Like swords is, yeah, I guess it's just very Japanese, isn't it? But yeah.
Well, like I have one that my father-in-law bought for me. They're typically they're talking about the historical swords, so they know where all of these 400-500 year
I see.
old
Okay.
family, because a lot of times they're in families, they're passed down, and that way they know
Sure,
where these artifacts are for like historical purposes. It took
just for heritage
well, my
purposes,
father-in-law bought that sword for us when we got married, and then I had it while I was in Japan. And then I had to leave it with him because we were trying to get it sent over here. And it literally took, I want to say 5 years to get it cleared for them to, and he couldn't send all of it. Like he sent the blade and then I had to get new handles made because the furniture and hardware that was considered art. And so they weren't allowed to leave. So I had to, he sent me the blade and then I had to, I had pictures. I had him send pictures. So I had a guy that kind of duplicated.
To get it redone.
Yeah, the handguard and all the furniture and handles and stuff that went with it. So it looks similar, but it's modern construction. It's nowhere near as nice. But yeah, I had to leave those items, and it was interesting and weird.
That is weird, yeah. Now we've got we have like a firearms branch in like most states have. So if you own a gun, you need to register your gun with like just so they know where all the guns are, I guess. I don't know. That's what we've got here. But nothing with swords. Here you can just have a sword and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, you can just have it in your house.
Yeah. Good. Well, like I said, most of it they were dealing with like making sure that they were keeping track of the historical swords. But this is a question for you from Dan. What innovations are you hoping to see in steel for the steel front in the coming years? I don't have my reading glasses on.
Yeah, I was just reading that as well. Well, it's funny, isn't it? This is something you'd think you would have said. You could probably always, 15 years ago, you've said it about like S35 yen and stuff. It's like it's almost. I'm not sure what more you can do with steel anymore. I would like to see things like elastic ceramic and stuff become more proliferated, like spread around a bit. Elastic ceramics are really interesting, especially like my kitchen knife I've got from Roman Case. It's amazing stuff. Like it's light as a feather and it's, holds its edge for, it's mine. I've never sharpened my elastic ceramic kitchen knife and it's still the sharpest thing in my house. And it's been cutting for almost a year now. So I'd love to see the proliferation of more non-steel materials in knives, because as far as steels go, I mean, in terms of, and as I said, people have probably been saying this about S35 yen when that came out, but when you look at Magna Cut, it probably does about all that you'd ever really want a steel to do. I guess all you can really do from now is bring the costs down and bring the availability wider. So I think steel is really like, if you're thinking, in terms of, carbon plus iron, steel to me is almost at its limit. I'm not sure. You can always push a little bit more in and replace a little bit more of the iron with something else. But I would love to see.
We've said that in the past, like you said, like when S35VN came out, we're like, well, how much further can it go? And look how much further it went.
How much further can it go? So
there's so many things that they can do.
And you just look at how Magna Cut covers so many of the, like Spyderco putting this in their salt knives. Like it's ridiculous how they're so sure of its stainlessness that they're making it a salt knife now. It's and yet it holds its edge for a really long time, and it's quite easy to sharpen and it's quite tough. Yeah. It's I don't know. Steel's a tough one, but I'd love to see in general knives. I'd love to see Spyderco do a mule series in elastic ceramic or something like that. That'd be so cool. Like in the non-steel type things is always another frontier that I think we could look into a bit more. But a lot of folks are going to be.
Have you ever dealt with this one down here? Aiden McGill asks, SM100. It's one of those Nitnell. Elliot did a run of knives in it, and it is a very unique material.
I get asked about it a bit. It must be rare enough that I haven't been able to just come across a knife in it. So
they don't make it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know who. Yeah, I don't know who make like.
It was titanium. So Summit Metals made it, and it was a titanium and nickel alloy, and it allowed the titanium and nickel alloy it formed a weird thing because like AL4V titanium is aluminum and then vanadium, and so what you get is they form an alloy that's way harder than any of its individual components. It's harder than the vanadium, it's harder than the titanium, it's harder, and so you get these weird composites with titanium, and it allowed it to be hardened, but it maintains some of those. It's like I've sharpened it, and it's the only thing I can say that you can truly get sharper than a razor. It's terrifying because it's still so ductile. And so when you sharpen it, you bring it down. But then what it really, really responds to is when you're stropping it out. So that edge, when you're doing steel, you can only stretch that edge out and thin it to a point and then it breaks off. But those Nitinol, and it's so ductile that it continues to stretch and it gets thinner and thinner. And it's a fairly small molecule on its own. And so what you get is something that is just nightmare inducing sharp, because as you strop it, you're drawing that out and thinning that out further and further. And you're like, you can continue to do it until like I sharpened one of Elliot's, and you could just see it like just barely touching. And you could see the skin start to part. And I did a guy's knife in it, and he was like, oh, and before I could stop him, he went and did the 3-finger test.
Oh yeah.
And just touched it, and all 3 of his fingers were bleeding. I was like, yeah, I was trying to stop you.
Instantly. Wow. No, I've not had anything to do with those sorts of alloys. So yeah. So there's always, for me personally, there's always something new I need to be as I said, I hadn't even heard of K490 until yesterday. So there's always something new for me. But in terms of what steels can do, it's just up to the industry to keep surprising us, I guess.
Well, and then like Dan said here, there's a guy named Sean Houston. It's a Triple B handmade big brown bear. Yeah. So Sean is taking things that are just typical steels and doing like insane heat treats on them and completely changing the game on that. But it's small batch and it's very, very specific. So he's been coming up with some stupid good steel protocols for heat treat.
I was so hoping that. I mean, maybe when I saw him doing Spyderco stuff at SHOT Show, I was like, Spyderco needs to get that guy to like make them knives as well. Like Spyderco do so many different fixed blades. Sean will do them an amazing fixed blade. So I just hope they work with him in that way as well very soon, because that's if they've got him on their books already for whatever, they need to get him designing knives for him without a bloody doubt.
I want them to have him take over their heat treat. Because
you know what?
I used to love Spyderco, and I just can't. They've had too many issues with heat treat, and I think they're overpriced. Their stuff is too expensive for what you actually get. Some of their knives, I can see it, but not all of them.
Yeah, and Sean knows a grind as well. So if they put him, if they made him look at every grind before it went out, like you wouldn't get those kind of thickish para 3s and stuff that you get every now and then still. And that's Spyderco have always been about the full flat grind, and I know that, but you can do a full flat grind better than they currently do it, and Sean knows that, so that'd be great to see if he's on board doing it. I don't know what terms he's working with them on, but geez, it'd be the more input he has with them, the better, I'm sure.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to give you full screen because I have drank more beers than I should have, and I have to piss. So what I was going to say is I have a question for you. I'm going to put it on speaker so I can hear it while you're answering. I want you to tell me a knife that you wish you still had that you got rid of and why. And I'm going to give you full screen, and I'll be listening while I go around the corner.
Okay, so first we should all acknowledge that in about 45 seconds, Mike will be pissing and listening to this. So we'll just have a moment where we think about that. All right. The line's still T5. I think I alluded to it earlier. I made a video on it. I made a big sort of big to-do about how great it was. And then like a complete cock, I sold it for, and as I said, I can't even remember why I sold my line still T5 for. I recently tried to replace it with this guy here. And this is the line steel M7. And this is like a very similar spirit to the T5, but it's sort of larger, it's sort of clumsier. It's a good big knife, but I've sort of always had it compared straight away to my TRC Apocalypse. So it doesn't do that as well. I prefer the TRC Apocalypse. But as a mid-sized knife, the Line Steel T5 was about at the apex of what I think you could get, because mid-sized knives it's all about like just having something manageable and with a nice handle. And this has still got the nice sort of micarta handle, but they seem to have thinned and stretched it out a bit, so it's a little bit less comfortable. They've put a sort of ridge here, not as nice. So whilst I thought this was just going to be the T5 but longer, it wasn't that at all, and it was fine. But it certainly wasn't that knife again. So what I should have done instead of buying this knife was buy a T5 again. But I didn't, because I don't think there was one at the shop that I shop at, and because I wanted to try something new and make a comparison video. So that is my answer. Did you have a nice piss?
Lion Steel T5. Oh, it was amazing. It's beautiful. I was afraid I was going to sneeze there for a second. You know, I was like, ah, God, it's going to hurt. My dick's going to look like a windsock. The Lion Steel, that T5 was a good knife, a good fixed blade.
It's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, don't know why I sold it, because I'm dumb.
I have to ask you, have you gotten to handle one of the stonefish fixed blades that I designed for Wee Knife Company?
No, I've never had a Wee fixed blade knife at all.
I think I designed the first one they ever made.
Oh, really? No. So I've Wee knives, you can get them here, but you generally have to buy them from like an American seller. But we don't have a huge amount of Wee knife proliferation here. I noticed a couple of our like online sellers are getting a few more in, but yeah, I would be interested in seeing it at least.
I'd have to try and see how hard it would be. I've got one here somewhere. I'd have to see how hard it would be to get it to Australia, but I'd be willing to send you the one that I have. Hell, I don't know where it went.
Oh, it's just the shipping is insane at the moment to Australia. Like to get anything here within like a 6-week window is usually at minimum like $70 US. It absolutely.
Oh
sucks.
Yeah, it would be on a. It would wind up being on a slow boat, but this is
yeah.
That was the.
I have seen that. I didn't know you designed that.
Yeah, I designed that.
That's cool, man.
It was something that I always had wanted when I was in the military, was a knife that wasn't just so big and bulky and thick. I wanted something, because the majority of things you did were like small camp tasks. Like I cut some line, or I cut open my MRE for me to eat and things like that. And it was more of a functional design, but it had all the things that you would want from like a combat knife. You had all the trappings, and you had like a skull cracker and things, like if you needed to break a window. That's why I redacted the tang, so it would like shadow box the scales. Cool. I'll see if I can't get. I will talk to Seth
about it, man. Yeah.
I'll see if I get on with Seth at Wee Knife Company and see if he could get it to you through, because I know they have a lot of stock, because as good as that knife was, they didn't listen to me, and they decided they wanted to make a $300 fixed blade. And I was like, guys, everybody likes fixed blades.
Oh,
no one likes a $300 fixed blade.
Yeah, should have got a Civivi. Oh, was it before Civivi? Was it, or?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was. Hell, that was like 3 or 4 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah, because you see, I almost bought it the other day. Civivi have got a really cool looking, and it's like a Japanese Tanto looking knife. It almost looks like a it almost looks like a Terzola kind of knife. Like it's
Are you
really
sure it's not?
looking.
Are you sure it's not the Terzola? Because Bob designed a small fixed blade for them.
Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, I didn't look at it too hard, but I saw it, and it was like a flat backed Tanto style knife. It looks really good, and it was $105. So that's probably what you need to. That's probably what they need to do with that.
And that's why, like I said, with the small little warning, the sea snake, that's where I went with trying to keep it in a price range that was a little bit more acceptable. I'll show you what I'm talking about. The sea. Snake fixed blade. Pull up some images. I'll show you, because this was my latest design.
Cool.
And let me get it pulled up. I don't know if this is going to show. There we go. Let's share the screen. I still like. I imagine there's like hyperlinks and shit that I could use to make this go faster, but I'm very bad with. Here we go.
I would use my phone myself, but it is currently filming.
So that's the small little one, and I think they're like $50.
Yeah, nice. That's what you want, yeah.
And it's just something cool, for like, it's just something nice that you can carry for like just small little day-to-day tasks. And Hey, nice question right there, because that's my favorite warning right there. Chase Purdue. That's my favorite warning. You know why? Because when you buy one, I get paid.
Well, there you go, Chase. My favorite one. I don't really have too many Warncliffs. Is the was it the? I always muck up the name. The QSP, is it the parrot or the penguin? The QSP little, like, it's a little folder from QSP, and I've got 2 of them now, and they're just great little around the house.
Are you talking about this
That one? Yeah, that one.
That's the
Yes,
QSP
that's the one.
penguin.
What is
That's the
penguin?
penguin.
That's the penguin.
Yep.
Is that even a Warncliffe though? Would you?
You know what?
Is that a Warncliffe or is that a sheep's foot?
I think this is more of a sheep's foot, but they're so similar.
Yeah,
Like,
I think so too.
They're just
I think
it's
a
the same
Warncliffe
genetic line, you know?
a Warncliffe starts from about there, I think, and goes down a bit sooner. Yeah, I think I know what you mean, but yeah.
I would
so
say
that's
this is
because
more
I
of a
don't have
sheep
it.
foot, but this is a great
I think
little
so
knife.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have too many Warns or sheep foots or anything like that. So yeah, lesser in my collection of those.
This actually came. QSP gave me 2 of these. One for me to. They were both like gifts to the channel. Like, do whatever you want with them. I did one as a giveaway, and I kept the one that was in the denim micarta. So that's basically blue jean micarta. And then I did a ceramic.
I almost picked up a titanium one the other day. It looked kind of cool, but
I've handled them and they're heavy. I've handled them and they're heavy.
Okay.
And I'm like, I dig. Like, I dig the D2 steel, especially after like I did a ceramic coating on it myself and all that. I was like, I don't think that I would need the upgraded version. It's just really, good the way it is. And I like it because it's light and it's balanced well. Yeah.
Yep. I literally just have them in drawers in my house, like for anyone to use if they need them. So they're great.
I have shelves of knives out here in the garage. When we moved from the old house to here, when we moved from the old house to here, my wife was like, okay, like, you have the entire garage. We don't have to park in there. She's like, I don't want knives in the house. And I was like, what? And she goes,
yeah.
I couldn't argue, because when we were at the old place that we sold, the house that we had sold, there was not a horizontal surface in the house that didn't have knives on it. Like, they were laying everywhere.
It gets all that
everywhere. It's just I have too many. I need to get rid of some. But every time I get ready to get rid of one, I'm like, well, I could use that for a video for comparison. And it's
always
really
the justification, isn't it? I've got my drawer of sort of like sad knives that I never actually used just there. Like, I've got my everyday carry knives are in my bedroom. This is just like the knives that I can't quite bear to give away, but they just sit there, and they'll probably sit there for a year, and I might get them out once or twice for comparison for some reason. But you feel bad for it. So, and most of them are just like probably lower priced knives, like the CRKTs and the real steels and the steel wheels and those sorts of things.
I like oh damn, now I can't think of it. There was a knife that came in. It was a steel will, and it was a little folder gecko. It was the mini gecko.
Oh yeah, the gecko. Yeah. Yep. That
was almost perfect. I like a good lockback, but the action on that was so smooth. It was like you could have done it as a flipper. And I was like, this is almost perfect. Yeah. And it was an N690 CO. The edge it took was gorgeous. I put off sending that knife back to the customer, send it in for sharpening. I literally put it off because I enjoyed having it here. I was like, I've got to do a video about it. You got to let me keep it for an extra week or so. So I used it, had to resharpen it. So basically I sharpened it, then made it dull and had to resharpen it. Like, I only got paid for one sharpening, but I was cool with it because I really enjoyed having it. I enjoyed having it on the channel. It was great.
This is a justification for so many of my knife purchases. Oh, you might get a video out of it, is what you tell yourself every time. And you think, oh, maybe that video will pay for the cost of the knife. And you're like, then you look at your analytics and the video made like $7. And you're like, fucking dickhead. Why do I keep telling myself this?
Guys, I don't know if you guys realize that the amount of, like, everybody thinks that guys that have YouTube channels, like, oh, they make money. Like, we really don't make very much money.
I guarantee you, I've never bought a knife that is, from the views of its video, has paid off that knife. I promise you. Like, it's
I have had
the only knife I ever have. Yeah, I've had one as well. What's yours?
It was a cold steel video, and I used the proceeds of like the 100 and something thousand views I got off that video to buy a shitty fucking cold steel knife.
Yeah. Yep. Mine was the husk knife. Remember that I reviewed those
Yeah.
husk knives from the internet. So that video did great. That video went properly crazy, and it made like $1,000 or something. So that was really cool. But and just for ragging on a knife, like I mean, pretty soft target as well, low hanging fruit and all that. But there seemed to be an interest, and
I was always curious about them though. Like I saw them and I was like, maybe they're not that bad. And you did the video, and the second I saw it, I was like, man, that's a roller stamp, because I'd never seen one up close. I was like, that's a fucking roller stamp, and it's spray painted. And like I said,
so
growing
bad,
up,
so bad.
I like to say, like, I truly grew up in Japan. Like I wasn't an adult when I joined the military, and then I spent like 13 years in Japan. That's where I really grew up, if you want to know the truth. And I saw all these things, and I saw like actual like little shops where they're making knives in the back and selling them out the front. I was like you could, you've seen enough of them, you can pick them out of a lineup. And you showed that video up close. I was like, did they roller stamp that? What the fuck? Absolutely.
It's like almost like I had to, because I tried to replicate the success of that video with I got a Coolina knife, which is another kind of one of those viral brands.
That's the cleaver. That's the cleaver looking one, right?
Yeah. But the problem was it was not as devious as the husks was. It was just just your classic badly made knife. Whereas the husk knives are actually, they're not even made of like steel. They're made of like, hot metal. Like that, and it's so much worse. The Coolina knives are kind of like, it's that less satisfying. Oh, these just aren't very good and they come poorly finished. So I tried to sort of replicate it on that. But yeah, the husk knives are something else. That's like properly scammy. Like, yeah, nasty business that is.
There's
just it's that whole Instagram sales, just trying to sell stuff before people have looked at it properly. That's what it is.
I tried the same thing. Like I did a video, the one that I said was a cold steel video that got like 100 and something thousand views, and I tried to duplicate it, and I didn't do anything different. I didn't really do anything different, and it never really got that much traction. And that's one of the ones that YouTube demonetized. And I'm like, wait a second. Like it got to about 17,000 views, and they demonetized it and made it like 18 and above. And I was like, and I went back through it, and I was like, I don't know. I didn't say anything in that video that was any different than what I had said in the other. I kind of clarified my points from the first video, and they demonetized it. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand the algorithm. I don't understand the rules. I don't get any of it.
You can't reason. You can't argue with it. You can't reason with it. You just got to take the L and just move on, because the last thing you want is them to actually start looking at your channel. The last thing you want is a human from YouTube to start to be like, well, fine, you want my attention? You've got it, buddy. I'm going to look at all your videos. And then you'd be like, they just fucking nuke you into oblivion. So
I actually reached out to him because I've had this swings and roundabouts thing. I had this weird thing happening with my subscribers. Like I lost like 700 subscribers overnight. And then it built back up, and then I lost 700 subscribers overnight again. And I contacted them. I'm like, there's got to be something wrong. And like this whole week has been really like, I didn't get any views, but now all of a sudden I'm seeing that it's starting to step back up again. And so I think maybe they resolved it. I think maybe they looked at it, because I try real hard to stay inside those gray guidelines that YouTube provides us. Like, hey, almost like, where can I go with this? Like, I don't know what to do. It's just like I said, that's why I moderate the channel heavily.
Well, that's the thing. I was amazed with my husk video, because you hear all these things like, oh, if you have knife in the title of your video, you get shadow banned. And that husk video is literally called Husk Knives, whatever. And it went absolutely nuts. And I think if a video is going like to over 100,000 views, then someone at YouTube, or the robot at YouTube at least, would have some awareness of it. And for them to let it continue on, it was kind of heartening, to be honest, to think, oh, well, at least they're not just shadow banning everyone who says the word knife, which is good. Like you get at least paranoia about it. But then it's kind of you feel even more helpless after it, because you're thinking, well, it's the same as all my other videos, really. Why did they choose that one? And is that the only good big one I'm ever going to get? Or it's on both hands, uplifting and crashing at the same time, because it's just so hard to get like a straight answer about, please, I want to do well on your platform, please help me. And they're just like, I don't know.
Exactly. Like you reach out and they're like, we really don't know what the fuck's going on. And you're like, but you work there.
No one does. It's like, there's like some Wizard of Oz character there who knows it all, but no one knows who he is. And he wouldn't want to tell everyone who he is, because then everyone would be calling him. So I don't know.
So
it's the dance.
What is your favorite knife? They already asked me what mine was. What is, and you can't say I know that the Almar was your grail, but well, I mean, if that's your favorite, that's your favorite. But
Oh, I don't. Yeah. I mean, I like my Elmar is like my current sort of. I'm loving it because it's new and because I've always wanted it and that sort of thing. My favorite's probably my. Oh, if it's not my, I'll get up. Because.
Look at those legs. Look at those sexy legs.
What are we? Here we go. Cool. So this is probably my gladdest knife purchase. This was a TRC Apocalypse, and this is just a big stupid.
That's the one you were
it's
just talking about. Yeah.
It's like over a 1/4 inch thick. It's just very, very nice. It's made in Elmax. It just feels special, So there's that's something I'll never sell. I love my little. This is again harkening back to that conversation earlier about like your knife story, your origin story. This is probably the first really expensive knife I bought. This was a Falconeven F1, and this is just your VG10, your basic one. This has
I
been
never
on the
got
channel
that. I
for
never
about-
got one of those. I've never
Yeah.
got. I always wanted to see one. I never got one in hand.
Yeah. This has probably been on the channel for about 8 years now, and I like it for the same reason I like the Almar. It's just like I love these like just black and silver, no frills, just no fuss to them. And the F1 Pro is probably a bit nicer. It's got the better steel and it's got the silver guard, but this is something I'll never sell. It's more of like a channel staple, a knife journey, flagpole, tent pole sort of thing. And it's still legitimately a good, fixed blade knife too. It's crazy sharp at the moment too because I've been doing convex sharpening on it. And
that's what I do too, and it gives you a different kind of edge. They have a tendency to. Have you noticed that the convex edges have a tendency to hold a little bit better because there's more material behind that fine edge?
And just they just hold like a good working edge for way longer. Like it's you maybe you're crazy. Your hair shaving might not last as long or it lasts as long, but just as something you can force through material for a longer period of time. Yeah, convex every time. You can see why lots of folks do it. Yeah.
I put a lot of work. I put a lot of work into figuring out how I was going to do mine, and I've had customers like, I did the same edge that you did, and he's like, it's not the same. It just doesn't cut. Plus, a good convex is, and the reason I do it is because a good convex, like a Japanese sword or like a hatchet, it moves that material out of the way of the edge, like a wedge.
Yeah.
And you actually get a little bit more cutting potential out of a convex edge than you do like a V-grind. V-grinds are great. I'm not knocking them at all, but I think that you get a better cut and more ease of use out of a convex because it does act like a wedge and push, especially like soft materials like flesh and things like that. If you're cutting meat, they're great for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. I've got the Dutch bushcraft knives. I've got their Kickstarter knife coming at some point this year, I guess, whenever they can get it out. And that's a Elmax bushcraft style knife made by TRC. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's full convex ground, so
that's another channel. Yeah. That's another channel I like to watch. Those guys are hilarious.
They've gone so like for whatever. There's they're pretty far out. Like they're pretty out there, but. As I say, those guys make a full-on movie every week, like with proper like editing, special effects. Sometimes Mickey will even make a fucking song for the episode. Like whatever you think of the content, and there's always those angry people in the comments who just want Martin to sit in his shed and talk about sharpening again or whatever. But you gotta give him props for like having that big ambition of like every week we're gonna make a big stupid movie about a knife and we're gonna dance and sing and jump around and wear costumes and. Yeah, to be honest, I've got some channel envy for those guys. Like I definitely a bit of an inspiration for like some of the more weird edits and things I do. I see, well, geez, if DBK are doing that, then I can surely sort of ham my stuff up just a little tiny bit.
I really dig that, and I like the fact the whole thing is like a lot of us guys that have YouTube channels, we're doing it because it's not that we ever think that it's like I'm using it as income right now just because I can't work because of the COVID. Stuff and my medical conditions. But the fact is, I was doing this before I had to. I was doing this before it was like a job. I was making videos because I enjoy it.
Before I was a partner here.
Yeah, right.
You got it's a form of it's a self-expression. It's a self-soothing thing. I was making films before I was in the partner program. And as I said, there's not been a single knife apart from that husk knife that's ever paid for itself with AdSense revenue. That's for sure. So it's
you
just,
didn't have to make much on that video to pay for that husk knife, really.
well, that's true. So I was like, yeah. But yeah, it's just that whole thing. It does bring in a bit, but it just kind of supplements the hobby and makes the hobby perhaps less of a complete bath, like less of a complete wash. So
well,
yeah,
I've had a couple
sure.
things that happened. I had a couple things that happened just today that are like a light at the end of the tunnel. I got a call from a construction company that wants me to do vending for them, like a primary vendor. And then there's another thing that I don't want to talk about because I don't want to make a big deal of it because it's going to be, I don't want to jinx it, but it's actually, that would be like my dream. But yeah, it's like, I wouldn't care if I made money on this. I do make money on this, but I do this because I enjoy it and I enjoy the interaction. I like on the days where I don't have a guest, I'm in the chat and I'm just reading what the people are talking. But I do have to call out. So this guy right here, Tri-State EDC, is the reason that a lot of the knife. Yeah. So Cole is one of the reasons that a lot of us have, I bought lighting, I have a green screen, I changed the way I do my videos. I'm because his channel is so incredibly well done, even though he only has 1,000 subscribers. Like he's making all of us kind of like, oh shit, I got to up my game. Like this dude is making actual cinematic style videos and shit. I gotta try and find a way to keep up.
Oh, it all started with me with the editing is when you just realize that and not to, sounds horrible, but like the human brain is lazy and you just need to keep stuff changing up to keep the attention span fed. And it's just as simple as editing. As soon as I started editing is when I started actually doing, well, I used to just plop myself down and talk about a knife for 10 minutes. And I sort of languished at the starting level of like 1,000 subs. As soon as I started editing, people they seem to watch for longer, and then that feeds the algorithm, and then your videos get shared a bit more. And yeah, so there's definitely a science to it, and it's definitely a science worth figuring out because the more effort you put in, you generally do get a bit out. Yeah.
Well, and the fact is that your videos are it's not just the editing. You've got a specific kind of humor that does kind of appeal to a lot of people. Like it's like Cole and I are from Southeast. Cole and I are both from Ohio. So you put the two of us together and we have a specific kind of humor that people find entertaining, but it's not going to be one of those ones like yours. You have a sense of humor that is just kind of, it's broad reaching and it comes through in your videos and it comes through real natural. And that's what makes your channel fun is it's a natural kind of humor that everyone enjoys.
I think it's an Australian thing or rooted in the British thing, I guess, of just, it's being able to self-depreciate and just because a lot of my stuff, that's what this Bricky is the whole idea of Bricky. Bricky is just me 8-miling myself in every episode. As in Bricky is my voice. Like he says all the shit that all my self-conscious thoughts and all my things about how stupid this all is. Bricky just says it out loud and puts it on the table. And I just, it's my way of basically saying, I'm stupid for spending all this money on these knives. This makes no sense, but we're all having fun and enjoying it sort of thing. And it's just being able to self-depreciate. I think people appreciate that a little bit to be able to say, this guy knows he's a bit dumb. And yeah.
Yeah, you have Bricky. I have PDM, which is Poor Decision Mike. And he wears a cowboy hat and just does stupid shit. And that's 100%. That's 100%. Like you have Bricky. I have, yeah. And then
if
we
you've
have
got any insecurity, you got to wear it on the outside. Yeah, you got to wear your insecurities on the outside because otherwise people they see them and they think you're a bit, it's the only way to deal with them is to just be very open about all the silly things that you actually do. And I think that's what resonates with people a bit because,
it's always fun to watch your videos because there's always some humor and the editing is good, but like it's always something different. Like there's not like I don't like channels that only ever do like rope cut or cardboard. And people are like, oh, you should do cardboard cutting tests. I'm like, you know why I don't do cardboard? I do test on cardboard. Like, do I like this knife? Does it hold an edge? But I don't like watching cardboard cutting. So therefore I'm not going to have to film it and edit it because I don't want to watch it.
It's pretty dry watching. That's for sure. I've just been chucking a quick rope cut montage on over me talking still. And that seems to be doing the job for people who want the data still. But even me just putting the thing to music for a good 3 minutes of my video, I just found that that's a dead spot in the watch. People just skip to the end of that and want to see the number. So lately I've just been going, must be pretty dry watching. So I'm just going to keep talking, keep my review going, and could just be a clip that I overlay on the top of it. Because you don't want to, you don't want to starve the people of like enjoyment when they're watching you. It's not the point of YouTube at all.
So Mike O'Brien said Pete invented a heckler and Mike invented a clown.
Exactly.
Here's the thing,
know what? Because
I'm definitely a clown. I always have been. I always will be. And it's a big part of me. Like I like to joke about it, like PDM, like I killed him or I locked him in a garage or something. Poor Decision Mike has been a very large portion of my life. I would have never met my wife if it wasn't for Poor Decisions. I left.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to work the next day and drove 2 hours away and got drunk in a bar and then called a buddy to take my day at work. I was like, hey, you got to go to work for me. I met this chick. I was like, if it hadn't been for Poor Decisions, I wouldn't have a child.
That's right. It's what can start out as a poor decision can turn out to be like on the trajectory of life, a watershed moment, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. What do we got here? I'm trying to look at these. Purple Heart Barbecue. So my buddy Polly is he started a channel. He's a Purple Heart Barbecue. He's a disabled Army vet, and we work together at 32nd Street at the Naval Base. And he's got some pretty good little short videos. They're a lot of fun. So just to give him a shout out because he's here. Oh, it's he's a Crocodile Dundee. Great. Polly's here. Okay, so I asked you about the Almar. Are you still as happy with your purchase of the Almar now as you were when you first got it? Because I know that sometimes
really
there's that honeymoon period.
No. This is I'm 100% satisfied customer here, and even I was thinking I'm going to be sharpening this all the time. I'm actually not as well. I'm not sure if that means that I use my knives way less than I thought I did, or if it's just a decent treatment of AUS 8. But that was the one thing I was kind of bracing myself for. AUS 8 sucks, and that's going to be the thing I notice. Haven't even really noticed that. I've just been every now and then I'll strop it on my little thing. But I'm carrying it.
It depends a lot. AUSA 8 can be good. Cold Steel did a bunch of knives in AUSA 8 that were just like their AUSA 8 was way up there. There's a whole handful of companies that
it's at least at the very least it's fine. It's absolutely fine. And so that was the one thing I was kind of bracing myself for. But no, I've always wanted it. I've wanted it for years. I've wanted it since I've seen Nothing Fancy pull out of his bum bag fanny pack, 10 years ago. So a fair bit more time will have to pass before I go cold on it. I think I may one day at one point, but some knives I just never go cold on. I still love my Police after 3 years now. So, and they're actually kind of similar-ish knives, really, when you think about it. Just
they kind of are.
Yeah. I think someone was telling me that Almar had a lot to do with early Spyderco, so probably makes sense.
Almar had a lot to do with a lot of companies' early knives. I mean, he's a legend.
Benchmades and
it's like that's like a lot of tactical knives. Like I'm really good friends with Bob Truzuola, and I can see his influence across so many knives that are in that tactical knife realm. Like, when you look at a tactical knife, you can see the influence that Bob has had on tactical knives from inception. Bob and I have been talking about having him on here live, and he was on for the 24-hour knife rates thing, but like to do an actual like sit down for 2 hours, and it just every time we get ready to do it, something changes, like my schedule or his schedule. But
it's hard. It's tricky.
Well, and you want to talk about something incredible to watch? Like I fucking run off at the mouth constantly. You get Bob talking, I'd shut the fuck up and listen. I'm just like, it's like story time with Bob. Like, it's just like, it's always like people talking over each other on a live feed on my channel. Not when Bob's on, not when I'm talking with Bob.
He's got the presence. Yeah.
Well, he's just like, he said, Bob basically wrote the book on tactical knives. No, Bob technically wrote the book. Bob Terzola wrote a book, Tactical Knives by Bob Terzola. Literally wrote the book. The dude is brilliant. He's a genius and one of the sweetest guys you'd ever want to meet. Charles said, I said one time that Cold Steel's AUSA 8 was similar to S30V. It really was, except it didn't chip like S30V. Like have you ever had problems with chipping on S30V, especially Spyderco's S30V?
See, I never have, but I do often. I'll still raise it if I'm talking about S30V, I'll still raise it in it because everyone says it. I've never had S110V do particularly bad with me either, but lots of people obviously have. And so I'll often recount. It's a bit like how you bring it. Sometimes when you're reviewing a product, you'll roll out the Amazon reviews as well and say, look, I think this way. This is what the reviews say. So often I'll roll it out and say, oh, I've never had this problem, but reportedly, S30V can be a bit of a bitch sometimes if you hit a staple with it or whatever. So, but yeah, I've not had it personally. In fact, I've never really had a particularly bad. Some companies, like I've had a Tucson in S90V, which was a bit weird. That seemed a bit dull, but I've really never been too unlucky with my steels. I've never really got too many bad ones, so to speak. I bought a Bark. Yeah,
I had an issue.
I bought a Bark
this
River
one.
once. Yeah, that had the wrong steel. What's that?
This was my Benchmade 940, and when I got it.
So it is, yeah.
Yeah, so it was an S30. This is in S90. I had a guy that gifted me an S90V blade. And I had so many problems with the S30V in this and a couple of other Benchmade and Spydercos, and it would chip. Like you could just feel the little microchips. You'd sharpen it, and then like just one or two cardboard boxes, and you could just run your thumbnail down it. You just feel all those little chips. But I've had some custom knives in S30, some Strider and some other stuff that were in S30, and the heat treat on them were great. So, I mean, like Spyderco and Benchmades, I think it was a matter of the heat treat. But I never had an issue with 110.
Yeah.
What were you saying? I'm sorry.
Except I used to read that a lot about 110 that people thought it shipped out. Even the first bunches of Maximet from Spyderco. Often sort of I saw Nick Shabazz got a bad Maximet from Spyderco when it first came out, but I think it's just one of those things. People get used to the steels and the treatments get better and whatnot for it. But I did have that 3V that Benchmade put those first few bailouts in. That stuff sucks. That was like really soft and you like noticeably like I think it's at that point where often the end user, even if it is a slightly shabby batch of steel, the end user probably wouldn't notice it, like the casual user. But I think even in that sense, that those first few, like there was that the 200, the 200 Benchmade 200 fixed blade knife and that 3V bailout. The 3V in that was so soft. I think that the end user would have actually thought of themselves, my knife seems to be going dull fairly often. This is the problem. So I've had those two. I had a Bark River knife that was mislabeled once. That was a very awkward thing. Like it was A2, but I thought I bought the brand on the thing said CPM 154. So that was a whole video about 4 years ago. That sucked. God, it's the worst when that sort of stuff happens and you have to like deal with the company and then like, oh, you make videos, do you? Probably just love the drama of this all. And I'm like, please, Mike, I fucking swear I'd rather not be talking about this with you at all. This sucks.
I'd rather not have this conversation at all. Like, if you think I'm enjoying this, you're absolutely wrong.
That is my nightmare when you get something, especially when the company sends you something and it sucks. You just like, because you can't, I couldn't make a video on it if it sucked, like, or you'd have to make a bad video on it. And so you always end up like having to talk to the company and not, just like it's not what you get into this for at all, to deal with companies in those terms. Absolutely fucking not.
Well, and I've actually had to do that. Like and I had to do it with We Knife Company, which like I told them, like I did a video and I told them because they've made one of my knives. And so I reached out to them. I was like, I'm going to do a video and I don't want you to get upset. It was a knife that Jared sent me. And I was like, I don't want anyone here. I don't want anyone at We Knife Company to get upset. It's just because there's too many things for me personally. And it was the We Kite Fin. And it was the first We Knife Company knife that I have ever really not liked. And that was the title of the video. But like everyone there was like, no, it's okay. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I was like, okay, I just don't want you guys to get upset because I enjoy the comfortable relationship we have between designer and producer. It felt awkward, but like they didn't care. They wanted an honest opinion on it. I was like, it's too thin. And like the blade was perfect, but the handles were horrible. That was the big deal for me.
Because they all say they want an honest opinion, but then when you say like, oh, I don't really like this too much, they always want, oh, before you post the video, that's mainly why I've just stopped dealing with any of them entirely. I think the last thing I've got the TS Prof knife sharpener that they sent me from Russia. And even that I found incredibly uncomfortable to like just that whole process. Luckily, the sharpener is good. It's, I've got a K meter. It feels about the same. So the reviews eventually are not going to be too bad. But like, what I am a bit wondering, the stones do seem to like have less durability than the KME stones. So I'm going to have to touch on that, which I don't love, but it's important for me to tell people that because it's, it does seem like they are not holding on as long. Like my KME stones have done hundreds of knives, and I think I've changed them once or twice.
So
I'm
you said
reckoning
how many knives? You said like 1,000 knives now you've sharpened with the KME or
I would
something
have
like
sharpened
that?
1,000 knives. That KME there for sure, easily 1,000 knives. Because if you think I've probably done about 300 actual tests, which involves at every test completely reprofiling a knife, and that's outside my
Yeah.
personal sharpening for like myself, other people, and often lots of my tests involve 2 sharpenings, 3 sharpenings, so easily
Yeah.
1,000 knives with the KME. It's smaller. The TS Prof is nicer to use knife to knife because the stones are bigger and you do it quicker and it's kind of easier to dial it in and it feels more sturdy. But I have a feeling those stones are not as the diamonds aren't staying on there as long as the KME ones do, or they're not staying as virile for as long. Virile,
Yeah,
is that the word.
my
you know
whole,
what I mean.
I've explained it. So I've had companies like I told like I try not to get too much stuff from companies. I like getting stuff from other reviewers. So I'm not dealing with companies, but Artisan
Definitely.
as one of their designers, Artisan knows that if they send me something I don't like it, I'm like, look, here's the deal. The whole point of this channel, and fanboys get all mad like when I talk shit about Spyderco knives, but I personally think that Spyderco overcharges and underdelivers. Same with Benchmade and some other companies. I will have knives here and there that I do like, but the whole point of the channel was not everybody gets a chance to handle these knives. And so I'm just bringing them, like, these are my perspectives on this knife. Like, take them as you would, but at least ahead of time, because it's reached a point. There's like, I don't know how it is in Australia. There's not many brick and mortar stores for you to go and pick up and handle a knife. Everything's online. And so you're going to get a knife you might not have ever seen. And so when I get something in, I just like to point out, like, these are my personal issues with it. They might not affect you, but this, just so so you're not flying into a purchase blind.
Oh, for sure.
That was the whole point of the channel.
Absolutely.
So what's this?
Yeah. No, we don't have any brick and, like, I think there's like camping shops which sell like Schrade, and then it's like Smith and Wesson brand fixed blade knives and Leathermans, and that's it. Like, in my area, there is nothing. In the stores I order from in Australia, they're Australian shops. They do have shop fronts, but they're in different states. So I've never even been into a physical knife shop and handled knives myself. So I go all off reviews entirely. So that's all I've got.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. And I might, so I typically will, when I get a knife in, especially if I'm getting it from like Jared over at Neves Knives, I'll get a knife in from him and I'll look at his review. But I try and do it a little different. Like, I've got my shit structured to where, like, it comes in, I do the unboxing and I look at it. That's the first impressions. And then sometime in the next few weeks, that knife goes in my pocket, and that day, or like if I carry it for a few hours on like Tuesday, then Wednesday I'll shoot the video, like first day in pocket. Like, these are the things that I found in the day that I carried it. And then I'll wait like a week or two and I'll rotate it through and I'll carry it and things like that. And I don't ever look at price, steel. I basically, if you watch one of my first day in pocket videos, I know nothing about the knife. I just know what I know from having it in my pocket that day. I might know the steel and things like that. And then, like, because like, if I'm not going to lie to you, this knife, I swear I thought this was going to be like a $200 knife. And if Jared had told me that this was a $49 knife, I may have been swayed to think, to give it a lower first impressions, because, well, it's a budget knife. So I like to just kind of leave it. I like flying into it blind, and I never look anything up till I do the final video, the final review.
Yeah, I had a chap, like, just one of my local, I think he's got a contract getting some stuff sorted with Best Tech. He's getting a line of his knives made. He's a custom maker. And he sent me like his 3 knives to do like a little, what I think of them, just as a private thing to send them back. And I was just like, don't tell me anything about them. Like, I don't want to know what steel they're in. I don't want to know, like, which ones are made by you and which ones are made by Best Tech or whatever, because I wasn't sure if he'd made one and then got 2. So you should send me all 3 of them and I'll just tell you exactly what I think of them all. And I found that just like, it's a little bit scary, because you're a bit like, oh, what if you say really great things about the one that's made in the, in the factory, and not the one, not about the one that he's made himself. But
this one's shit. This one's great. You're like, great. That's the one you said was shit is the one that I made myself.
And that's the thing. And I've done a couple lately. I've done some like blind steel testing. I just love that, like the thrill of it. You're thinking, this is where it's actually like works out. Is all this stuff real or not? Like, if I know the knife steel is what it is, does that change it? And I love that. Like, it's just been, I find that much more exciting than just doing, I know the steel's this, so this is, you have that expectation of how it's going to go. Or when you get a steel that you haven't really researched, so you're not sure if it's a good steel or a bad steel or whatever. That's what I like. And then you get a proper, genuine number on the board about how well it cuts.
And you get a more honest opinion about something that way. If you're flying into it completely blind. And talking about steel, I got on the bad side of the HRC mafia there for a while. There's guys that like always chasing the Rockwell. I said like my personal stance. Yeah, my personal stance is I honestly, like, when I'm about to purchase a knife, the last two things I'm even going to look at that probably aren't even going to be like even an issue is like, what's the steel and what's the HRC? I honestly don't care. And I argue this a lot of times. People like, there's so many people that like, oh, I won't buy it unless it's at least, this steel at this hardness. And I'm like, well, you're missing out, because there's some steels out there that perform comparably to these super steels. And now you're limiting yourself because you want the best, the newest, and the hardest. And it's not always going to be better. And 99% of the people that,
as well.
Yeah, 99% of people that purchase a knife, if you gave them that knife in 440C or gave them one just like it in the top end super steel, they're not going to fucking know. They're not going to be able to pick those steels out of lineup.
It's that thought experiment, isn't it? If someone overnight changed all of your blades without you knowing to 8CR13 MOV, how long would it take until you realized? That's that thing. And I think for a lot of us, it would be much longer than we'd be fucking willing to admit. And it's because it's the thing, most of us have so many damn knives. We use one use this knife every week or once a week or once every 2 weeks. So to build up that, like, geez, this feels like it's going dull too soon. Not even an issue. Like, it's something that we all need to chill out about a bit. But I remember that someone that steel, wasn't it? Yeah.
So as someone who sharpens knives professionally, like I sharpen knives for knife makers and things like that. I sharpen knives for customers that have like, I literally had some knives in that the cheapest knife in the box was like $2,600. Now for me, how I'm going to know is when I put it on a stone. How's it react to that stone? But then I'm going to know like the difference in the steel. But a lot of times I can kind of pick out different steels. Like I'd be able to kind of say, okay, this is either DC 53, 14C or another Sandvik because of the edge, because they have a distinct way that the edge feels. After sharpening, like literally I've told people, it's not bragging, I've probably sharpened more knives than most people will ever own in a lifetime. This year. And so you kind of can learn how to pick, like, oh, that feels real similar. That edge feels real similar, the way it at that grip, the way it feels. But yeah, most people aren't even gonna know like the difference. It would take them forever to know.
Not to the point that it's worth harassing companies and other people about ever. Like, just not to that point where it's such an important thing that it's worth that. Yeah.
Thank you, Walt Gilbert. Walt Gilbert always gives me donations, and I appreciate it. I will say that there is an exception. I have a Spyderco Endura in ZDP 189, and it won't make it through an entire box. It is the worst heat treat I've ever seen on ZDP 189.
I thought like something's a bit I thought maybe it was the edge
angle, and I sharpened it. I thought, okay, maybe it got heated up at the edge, and so I sharpened it off. And I keep it here because it just prevents me from buying another Endura. Like, I just don't have them. I love having an Endura in my collection, and I just keep that one because it was a gift, and I don't have to buy another one because I've always had an Endura in my collection.
Yeah. That sounds like, I remember Nick Shabaz's Maximet Manix years ago. Like, the edge just kept falling off, like, over and over again. It was obviously just cooked, or it was fucked. And there's another word for it. It was just a fucked knife. And it sounds like what you got there. And that will happen, and that's for sure.
It happens occasionally. And if it's going to happen to somebody, I'm that guy. I'm always the guy that's going to get the fucked up lemon for some reason. I don't know why.
It'd be more of like it's that percentage, like that. It's just either that whole batch of that batch of however many were in the oven at the time were all fucked, or it was just that one single one was fucked, or whatever it was. But because I think with the HRC stuff a couple of years ago, people were like going after companies for like having their, oh, this is what we've chosen to treat this steel at. And it just seemed really strange to me. It was like, and it was people going after Lion Steel for having their M390 on the round head or whatever it was at 59 or something. And yeah, it was just such a strange thing for me to, and I always
there was
some
information that got put out and they released it, and that was absolutely the time that I got on the bad side of the HRC mafia, because I was like, they were like, this guy did the testing. I was like, this guy hasn't presented any credentials. And I was like, everybody was like, you're calling a dude a janitor. I was like, no, I said, for all we know, with no credentials, this dude not telling us anything, he could be the night janitor, and he just happened to be using that machine. Like, we don't know. And then it came out.
That's right. So someone was using a Rockwell machine. Was it? Yeah. I almost put it out of my mind. I almost felt some guilt about, like, I've always felt like, just because I know a lot of this steel stuff, because I'm such a talker about it. I'm like, oh, how much of this discussion have I contributed to unknowingly? Like, if I like settle these people off on these tangents about like chasing these crazy edge retentions and things like that. And I was kind of watching that whole thing unfold and just wincing. And a few people were asking me, are you going to say anything about this? And I think I ended up just making a video where I made fun of it all, because that's the best thing to ever do. If something serious is going on, you just have to make fun of it, because
and
everyone needs to fucking chill out. Like,
I wound up on the nightmare bad side. I stopped making videos for like a month because of that, because I couldn't make a video without just getting trolled. But it was completely misconstrued.
And when it's a hobby, when this is something we're all supposed to be doing for fun, like, all you can do is step back and make fun of it. If it's getting too serious, you just need to remove the tension from that scenario. Like, absolutely. So I think I did a steel test on the Line Steel Best Man, and it did fine, probably a little bit less than 66 Rockwell M390 would do, but it did fine for the 60 Rockwell M390 it might have been, or whatever it was. And it was just one of those stupid videos. But I think the main fun of the video was just the joke at the start of, like, the fucking about all the people.
Yeah, so, everybody lost their mind. But my redemption,
moment in time, wasn't it?
My redemption came a month later, after they had released all this stuff. And I told them, I was like, guys, you should probably not be like, you should, like, if you have a problem with it, approach the company. Don't do it in public like this, not in public forum. I was like, because I don't know if you know this, slander and libel still apply. And defamation of character for a company works every bit as badly against you as defamation against a person. And then, so all this data that they had collected a month after I did my video, and like everybody just shit on me for the whole thing, comes out that they sent it out to an actual professional testing lab, and the results were not what they had thought, because they got them tested in a different fashion. Like, okay, some of our results were wrong. And I was like, oh, where's my fucking apology? Where's my fucking apology? No. It never came, but
that's the thing. I had a thing with Steel Wheel years ago, and it was like one of the knives they sent me just had a bung heat treatment. It was just fucked. And I always regretted from the moment I posted the video, pretty much, I regretted like I put in my videos the conversation I'd had with the people. And I just remember thinking, and it was like, the video's still up somewhere, I think. But I just remember thinking like, this poor fucking person who just woke up in a day and just went to work at Steel Wheel, and just to deal with some fucking wanker on the internet, like saying, oh, no, talk to someone from Steel Wheel and she said this. And it's like, and then I sort of slung back in my chair, and I'm like, this is not what this is all about. Yeah, sure, I got a shit knife from Steel Wheel. It was undeniably a shitty heat treatment or whatever it was. But you know what? I should have just sat on the knife, just sent it back or whatever, and I always regretted that. And there was one of those moments in my life where I didn't take the high ground, and I just feel like I felt like a dickhead for it. And so I should have, because
I know exactly what you mean.
The customer service person running whoever's running the company's Instagram, that's just some poor fucking guy with a job. Like, leave them alone. Fuck off, like. And that's
like he comes in, he opens these messages, and he's just like, "Fuck me."
He's like, what?
I just want to suck on a shotgun. What the fuck?
Some twit on YouTube who's fucking sitting in his shed rope cut testing all days, found out one of the knives from Steel Wheel doesn't have good treatment, and now I have to fucking clean this up. So I just felt so bad immediately for that, and I haven't done that since. And I was just I
was gonna say that's
I
have
changed
with
that lesson.
What I've done. Yeah, I have changed how I do stuff. Like, I don't just immediately shit on. Like, if it's a knife that somebody sent me and it's like they sharpened it, like, and it got sent to me, I might talk about it. But like, I try real hard not to just shit on, especially now that I've made like my first few videos. Yeah, I shit on everything. But now that I've made knives and I realize how hard some of the things are to do, like getting an even grind is insanely hard, especially like I do it freehand. Like I completely understand. So there's a lot of times that I'll get something and I'm like, hey, I this came in, this is the issue. Would you like, I don't want to do a video about it like this. I think the first big experience I had with that was super expensive Will and Eric Touch handmade custom Sparrowhawk, which is a it's a double action. So you can either thumb flip it or then you can lay the bolster, the scale over, and it snaps open. And it came in, and I had met these guys, and I really, really liked them. And it came in for sharpening. I was going to do a video, but when I was sharpening it, there was something wrong with the lockup, and it would just pop. And I was like, wow, that's just closing on its own. And so I reached out to them. I was like, guys, like now that I know you guys, I don't feel like it would be right for me to shit on this knife in a video without giving you a chance to fix it. And they're like, oh, that'd be great. I would love to get it in. And so they took it. I sent it directly to them after sharpening. They fixed it and sent it to him and then let me borrow one to do a video. And I was like, all right, that's really, really awesome. And that was that little shift. Like, I don't necessarily want to shit on a company unless
you just need to say, well, that's like with Husk, for example, that's just a scam, like overall just bad behavior from start to finish. And that's fine. But most of these knife companies, they are just people trying to do their best. I think they actually are just trying to do their best. And when they fuck stuff up systematically, then if you can point to the system that they've fucked up that they can fix, then absolutely. But if you get a bad knife, no issues with saying I've got this bad knife, but I'll usually try and counter that with, but a lot of people didn't. And I got this bad knife that did this. But when I looked at the other reviews, most people didn't have this problem. So still take my account for it. But also, to quote fucking every idiot on the internet right now, do your own research. And
exactly.
True, you just need to you need to scale all of your stuff a little bit. Don't just, not one reviewer is going to have all the answers. And
your results may vary. That's been my, like, your results may vary. You may have different mileage. I can't say, but like,
true.
And I mean, I know for me, like I wear triple XL gloves. There's a lot of knives that just are uncomfortable for me that a lot of other people love because the pocket clip winds up sitting, case in point, the Kaiser Lan is a beautiful knife. It's attractive. The blade is just about perfect, but that thick ass pocket clip that they put on it for me made it prohibitively uncomfortable. The same pocket clip is on that Olight, the Olight knife Beagle, because they're made by Kaiser as well. Same pocket clip, no problem. It's just it's just where it's going to be a hot spot for me. Yeah. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's some bullshit. Like, you fucking complain about, I was like, I don't like pocket clips to begin with. And if it's uncomfortable, it's a tool. If it's a tool and I'm going to be not inclined to use it, then it's a hindrance as opposed to like a benefit. So
for sure. I'm with you there.
I had a question here that I saw. What is this? The Aussie Premiere? I don't know. That's my buddy. That's my follower Havoc, and he puts up posts that I never am 100% sure about.
Premiere. Lost me there, man.
Oh. So I think he was talking about like
state leader. Yes, like a governor. Yeah. So each state in Australia has a premier. That's the name of, like, it sounds like a governor of. So say like, the lead official of a state, is that a governor in America?
Yeah, that's exactly. Each state has a governor, and then each city has a mayor.
There you go. Yeah, cool.
And then you have then you can get into councilmen, which are different areas of a city. It's so confusing.
And your sheriffs are elected as well in some places.
Okay, right? So
rural areas or something.
So every sheriff is an elected official. If the way so like I can explain this. My dad was a sheriff's deputy, and so. If you read the Constitution, there is no actual federal law enforcement, and there is no like constabulary. There's no police. So the actual constitutional law is the sheriff of every county is the head law enforcement official of that area. So it depends on where you're at. Like where I live in Ohio, the sheriff is still the head not every county is like this in Ohio, but where I live in Ohio, the sheriff actually is in charge of not just the sheriff's deputies, which is the entire county, but any small local law enforcement agencies like constabularies, like police departments inside his county are also now deputized police. And if you're in town, if you're in the actual county seat where the sheriff's office is, there is not a police department in the city of Coshocton. You have county deputies, the road deputies that are out on the outlying areas. And then you have municipal deputies that are basically the police force for the town. But everyone in that county, if they're a law enforcement official, reports back to the sheriff, even if you're a police officer, like West Lafayette, New Cumberland, any of those small little police departments, all are deputized members of the sheriff's department, even though they're little municipality police departments, they still report back to the sheriff. So that's the way it was written in the Constitution, but it doesn't work like that everywhere. So, but all sheriffs are elected officials.
Okay. It's just it's a different world over there. It really is.
Yeah, it's fucking weird.
We're just so based in the British common law system here still. So it seems much simpler, but then I guess there's more opportunity for grey areas and for chasms to not be met. Like,
So is one of your favorite American movies Quigley Down Under? I just have to ask.
What is that? I've never heard of that.
You've never heard of Quigley Down Under? It's a Tom Selleck movie. He's an American cowboy, long distance shooter. You have to watch it.
I know Tom Selleck. I've never heard of Quigley.
You have to go on Netflix and watch. You have to go on Netflix or Amazon and watch Quigley Down Under. It's about an American cowboy that goes to Australia. It's amazing.
Okay,
it is an amazing movie.
I'll watch that.
It is such a great movie.
I'll watch that for sure. No, sounds good to me. I'll watch that. Tom Selleck. It sounds fun.
Yeah, Tom Selleck, like long distance shooter, and he gets hired by he gets hired by an Australian rancher, and he thinks he's going to hunt dingoes, but actually he's hunting Aborigines is what they want him to do, and he refuses to do it, and it turns into an all out like just full on Western battle between an Australian rancher and a long distance shooting cowboy. It's pretty awesome.
All right,
it's a pretty good movie.
Jeez.
So. Yeah, it's just like Tree Stab and Troy's like, what? You've never seen that?
That's not what I would expect that to have been about.
It's
cool.
It's
I'll watch that
such a good movie. So I usually like to keep these to 2 hours. So
yeah, for sure. I need to get to making dinner, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I figured. You've got a lot of chores and stuff. You've got an actual working farm, basically. So I figured that I would cut it loose. Guys, everybody go, if you don't already follow Pete, which you absolutely should. Like, I think most of my subscribers already, if you don't, you should, because it's an amazing channel. And I appreciate you coming on, Pete. This has been a blast. I have been looking forward to this literally for weeks since we decided when I
can fit one of these in, when I can fit one in and I don't have to do anything. More importantly, it works really well. I need to get more active on my channel again. My channel is like a fucking roller coaster, just like weeks of making a video a day and then a fucking 2-week period of nothing. So yeah, trust me, everyone, it'll be videos again on there soon, in some form or another. So, and
it doesn't matter. His videos are worth waiting for.
Mike. Good back catalog anyway, thousands of them.
So I think that this actually, I've been looking at the viewer count. I think this has probably been my most viewed live feed. So that should tell you something about the community and what they feel about you. So it's been awesome having you here. We maybe we can do this again sometime in the future.
I'm gonna do Ray's again. Gonna do Ray's again soon. Everyday City Carry. I'm gonna do him soon. I'm gonna do Ray soon.
Yeah, you're gonna do him like you should videotape that. That sounds disturbing.
I'm gonna fly to New York for it. Wouldn't be the same remotely. So I'm gonna do that one soon again. So yeah, whenever I can fit one of these in, I do enjoy it. So. Cool,
so
mate.
I'll tell you what. Maybe we'll get one put together where I can get Tri-State EDC because he's a lot of fun. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think we'd get a kick out of it.
Lots of windows is good. Yeah, like that was really good on the Knife Nuts Thanksgiving. Just chuck us all on the same screen. It works for me.
Yeah, that was fun. So, all right, Pete, you go ahead and get your chores taken care of, and I really appreciate you stopping by the channel. It's been a blast.
Happy to be here, Mike. Thanks much. See you guys.
All right.
Bye.
So, guys, that was a blast. I appreciate all you guys being in here. It's been so much fun. I've been looking forward to this live feed since Pete and I talked about it on Thanksgiving. And I've been looking forward to this since Thanksgiving. We've been trying to get it figured out. So If you guys don't follow his channel, you absolutely should. And I am tired. So I think we're going to end this. I may, if you guys want, anybody want to do an after, just so everybody's on board, is anybody want to do an after show? So let me know right now before I will log back in for a little bit if you guys want to do an after show. I think I have 2 beers left in my cooler. We could do 2 beers worth. So okay. Hey, Spitfire. No, I'm good. It's only 10 o'clock here and I slept till like almost 9 o'clock this morning. So yeah, great. Okay. If there's a handful of people, I'll tell you what, give me maybe 10 minutes to take a leak, put the dog out for a little bit, and I'll bring up an after show if you guys would like. I was going to ask Pete if he wanted to, but I know that he does have chores. So, yeah, this will be fun. So we will go ahead. Tri-State EDC. Does that include me too? I love you guys. So yeah, we'll end this. I'm going to go take a leak and we'll come back and do a little bit of after show. So I'll see you guys maybe 10 minutes.